Hello, and thank you for being here at Infidelity Tales Lab. Your presence makes sharing these stories worthwhile. Tell us, where are you tuning in from today? Big city? Small town? Share with us in the comments. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Foundations of Trust. Russell Harmon stood at the bay window of his custom-built home, watching the autumn leaves scatter across his immaculately maintained lawn. At 42, he had built everything in his life. The construction company he'd grown from the ground up now employed over 100 people. The sprawling 5-bedroom house in Greenwich, Connecticut reflected 20 years of disciplined work and sacrifice. Morning, handsome. Vanessa's arms encircled his waist from behind, her jasmine perfume enveloping him. She rested her head against his back, and he felt the familiar warmth of her body through his shirt. Morning, Russell replied, covering her hands with his. After 12 years of marriage, her touch still calmed the relentless drive that pushed him forward each day. Russell turned to face his wife. At 39, Vanessa still carried the ethereal beauty that had stopped him in his tracks at a gallery opening all those years ago. Her auburn hair caught the morning light, framing high cheekbones and clever green eyes. He brushed a strand from her face. "Big meeting today?" she asked, smoothing his tie. "Department of Parks contract. If we land it, we'll be set for the next 3 years." He kissed her forehead. "Should be home by 7. Want to do dinner?" "Can't tonight. I've got that charity auction for the Children's Hospital." She sipped her coffee. "But tomorrow's all yours." Russell nodded, gathering his briefcase. "Tell Madeline good luck with those sketches." Their 17-year-old daughter was applying to art schools, following her mother's creative footsteps rather than his practical ones. He'd made peace with that years ago. "Will do." Vanessa handed him his travel mug. "Oh, Noah called. Said he might drop by the site today." Russell's expression tightened almost imperceptibly at the mention of his younger brother. "Great. We could use an extra set of hands." The brothers had always been a study in contrasts. Where Russell was methodical and reserved, Noah was impulsive and gregarious. For years Russell's junior, Noah had bounced between jobs until Russell had brought him into the company 5 years ago. Despite his brother's haphazard work history, Russell couldn't deny Noah's charm with clients or his eye for architectural detail. "He's trying, Russ," Vanessa said, reading his expression. "Give him credit for that." "I always do." Russell kissed her goodbye. More credit than he deserves? Probably. The drive to the construction site gave Russell time to review his presentation mentally. The Harmon construction bid for the state park renovation project had been meticulously prepared. Russell had personally walked every inch of the proposed site, identifying potential complications and solutions. As he pulled into the temporary lot beside the partially finished community center, Russell spotted Noah's motorcycle parked haphazardly near the trailers. His brother leaned against a stack of lumber, deep in conversation with Darla Green, the project manager. When Noah caught sight of Russell, he straightened and waved. "There he is, the man with the plan," Noah called, his voice carrying across the site. Several workers glanced up from their tasks, nodding respectfully at Russell. Russell gave a curt nod. "Noah, didn't expect you so early. Thought I'd help Darla with the subcontractor scheduling." Noah's smile revealed perfect teeth, courtesy of the orthodontist Russell had paid for when their parents couldn't afford it. "Plus, I had some ideas for the presentation." Darla, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and calculating eyes, handed Russell a tablet. "Your brother made some interesting suggestions for the sustainability section." Russell scrolled through the document, noting several additions highlighted in green. The proposals were good, creative even. He looked up at Noah, who watched him with barely concealed hope. "These might work." Russell nodded, returning the tablet. "Good thinking." Noah's face broke into a wide grin. "See? Told you I'd pull my weight eventually." "Let's see if it helps us land the contract first," Russell replied, but he allowed a small smile. Despite their differences, blood was blood. Their father had drilled that principle into them before his heart gave out in the middle of framing a roof when Russell was 19 and Noah 15. The morning progressed with the controlled chaos of a well-run construction site. Russell moved between supervising concrete pours, reviewing architectural modifications, and finalizing his presentation. By noon, he was satisfied with their progress. "I'm heading to the Department of Parks," he told Darla. "Keep an eye on the East Foundation. I don't like how that soil's settling." "Already on it," she assured him. Noah said he'd stick around all day to monitor it. Russell found his brother adjusting the site plans on a whiteboard in the main trailer. "You staying?" he asked. Noah turned, marker in hand. "Yeah, figured you could use the backup here." He hesitated. "Unless you need me at the presentation?" "No, this is good. Thanks." Russell meant it. "I'll call when it's done." Noah clapped him on the shoulder. "You'll crush it. You always do." As Russell drove to his meeting, he reflected on their relationship. Noah had always been the family favorite, coasting on charm and potential while Russell shouldered responsibilities. Yet there was something genuinely good in his brother that made it impossible to resent him completely. The presentation went even better than expected. The sustainability additions Noah had suggested impressed the committee enough that they extended the discussion by half an hour, asking detailed questions about implementation timelines and cost efficiencies. "Mr. Harmon, your attention to environmental impact while maintaining budget constraints is exactly what we're looking for," the committee chair said as they wrapped up. "We'll have a decision by next week, but I think it's safe to say you've set the bar high." Russell left the meeting with cautious optimism. He called Noah immediately. "Those sustainability points may have just won us the contract," he admitted. "Good work." "Seriously?" Noah sounded genuinely surprised. "That's awesome. We should celebrate." "Dinner at Morton's?" "Can't tonight. Vanessa has that charity thing." "Right, the hospital auction." Noah paused. "Well, maybe this weekend. We could take the boat out, just as brothers. Like old times." "Maybe," Russell said, non-committally. "How's the East Foundation?" "Stable now. Darla put in some additional supports." "Good. I'll see you tomorrow then." As Russell drove home, satisfaction settled over him. The business was thriving. His marriage was solid. His daughter was finding her path. He'd built a life of substance and security, everything his father had wanted for him but hadn't lived to see. He pulled into his driveway at 6:30, earlier than expected. The house was quiet when he entered. Madeline was probably at her after-school art program. He loosened his tie and headed upstairs to change before making himself dinner. Russell's phone buzzed with an email notification as he reached the bedroom door. He paused, expecting a follow-up from the Parks Department. Instead, the subject line froze him in place. "Your wife is sleeping with your brother. Check the garden shed at 3 p.m. tomorrow." He stared at the anonymous message, his mind refusing to process the words. Then he deleted it, categorizing it as a cruel prank or a wrong address. Russell Harmon's life was built on concrete foundations. Foundations he had poured himself. Yet as he pushed open the bedroom door, a single thread of doubt had already begun to unravel his certainty. Chapter 2: Fracture Lines. The anonymous email haunted Russell through a sleepless night. Vanessa had returned late from the auction, slipping into bed with a whispered apology and a faint scent of wine. Russell had pretended to be asleep, his mind churning with unwelcome possibilities. Morning arrived with merciful distraction. Russell buried himself in work calls while Vanessa prepared for a meeting with gallery clients. They moved around each other in their usual choreography. Coffee mugs passed, schedules compared, quick kisses exchanged at the door. "Successful auction?" Russell asked casually as Vanessa gathered her portfolio. "Very. We raised almost double last year's amount." She beamed, applying a final touch of lipstick. Noah's table actually outbid everyone for that weekend in Nantucket. Russell's hand tightened imperceptibly around his coffee mug. Noah was there? Of course. He's on a hospital board now, remember? His networking is finally paying off. She checked her watch. "I've got to run. Dinner tonight." "Sure." Russell forced a smile. "Have a good day." Once Vanessa left, Russell paced the house, the anonymous message replaying in his mind. The rational part of him, the builder, the planner, dismissed it as nonsense. Vanessa had never given him reason to doubt her fidelity. Noah, for all his flaws, was still his brother. Yet the email had planted a seed of suspicion that took root in fertile soil. Small inconsistencies in recent months suddenly demanded re-examination. Vanessa's increased involvement in charity events, Noah's unexpected reliability at work, the occasional text that made Vanessa smile at her phone and then slip it into her pocket when Russell entered the room. At 2:30 p.m., Russell found himself driving home, his construction site meeting postponed, with a hurried call to Darla. The garden shed sat at the far corner of their property, partially hidden by ornamental cherry trees that Vanessa had insisted on planting 5 years ago. Russell had built the structure himself as a studio for Vanessa's larger art projects, insulating it for year-round use and adding north-facing windows for optimal light. He parked his car a block away and approached his property from the wooded public land that bordered their backyard. The November air bit through his jacket as he positioned himself behind a thick pine tree with a clear view of the shed's entrance and windows. At 2:55 p.m., Russell watched his brother's motorcycle turn into their driveway. Noah cut the engine and walked with unusual purpose toward the backyard. He glanced at the main house, confirming it was empty, before heading directly to the shed. Russell's heart hammered against his ribs as Noah knocked lightly on the door. It opened immediately, revealing Vanessa in a simple sundress despite the autumn chill. She pulled Noah inside with an urgency that twisted in Russell's gut like a serrated blade. Moving silently along the tree line, Russell crept closer until he reached a position beside the large north window. The glass was partially fogged from the heat inside, but the scene was unmistakable. Vanessa and Noah stood locked in an embrace that left no room for brotherly interpretation. When they broke apart, Noah cupped Vanessa's face with a tenderness that made Russell physically ill. "Did you tell him about us yet?" Noah's voice carried faintly through the glass. Vanessa shook her head. "I need more time. He's got the parks contract pending and Madeline's college applications." Her fingers traced Russell's brother's jawline. "After the holidays. We'll start fresh in January. You've been saying that for months, Van." Noah caught her hand, kissing her palm. "I'm tired of sneaking around. He deserves to know, and he will." Vanessa sighed. "But you know Russell. He's all about control, about appearances. This would destroy him." Noah pulled her closer. "Or maybe it'll finally force him to see what his obsession with perfection has cost him." "Cost you?" "Maybe," Vanessa murmured, before their lips met again. Russell stumbled backward, bile rising in his throat. He barely made it behind the tree line before vomiting violently, his breakfast splashing against fallen leaves. His vision tunneled as 12 years of marriage collapsed like a demolition site. The walk back to his car passed in a fog of disbelief. Russell drove aimlessly for hours, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. By the time rational thought returned, the sun was setting, and he found himself parked at his first construction site, a modest 3-bedroom ranch he'd built fresh out of trade school. His phone showed 6 missed calls, 2 for Vanessa, 3 from the office, 1 from Noah. A text from his wife asked where he was, mentioned she was worried, said dinner was waiting. The casual normalcy of it landed like a blow. Russell considered his options. He could confront them immediately, but what would that accomplish? A messy divorce, division of assets, damage to the company's reputation, trauma for Madeline in her senior year. His life's work shattered by emotional impulse. No, Russell Harmon hadn't built his existence by yielding to emotion. He'd built it through planning, through patience, through seeing 10 steps ahead while others reacted to what was directly before them. He started the car and drove to a specialty electronics store 2 towns over. By the time he returned home at 9 p.m., he'd spent over $4,000 and had formulated the beginnings of a plan. "Where have you been?" Vanessa met him at the door, concern etched on her face. "I've been calling for hours. Emergency at the Thompson site. Water main break." The lie came easily, wrapped in plausible details. "Forgot to charge my phone. Sorry to worry you." Vanessa studied his face. "You look terrible. Have you eaten? Grab something on the way." Russell moved past her, the shopping bags concealed in his briefcase. "I'm going to shower and turn early. Big day tomorrow." In the bathroom, Russell braced himself against the sink, meeting his reflection's hollow gaze. The man staring back looked exactly the same as yesterday, yet everything had changed. The foundation of his life had been compromised, and like any good builder, Russell knew that unseen damage was the most dangerous kind. That night, while Vanessa slept beside him, Russell finalized his approach. He wouldn't react, he would respond. He wouldn't destroy, he would rebuild. But first, he needed evidence, needed to understand the full scope of the betrayal. The next morning, Russell called Darla. "I need to take some personal time," he told her. "Family matter. Can you handle things for a few days?" "Of course," she replied, her tone professional. "Everything okay? Just something I need to address." Russell hesitated. "If Noah asks, tell him I'm dealing with a potential client in Boston. I don't want him worried." "Understood." Darla paused. "Russell, if you need anything, I'll let you know," he promised, grateful for her discretion. Over the next week, Russell installed surveillance cameras throughout their property. High-definition, motion-activated, weather-resistant models hidden in light fixtures, garden ornaments, and trees. 2 were carefully positioned to monitor the garden shed from different angles. 3 more covered the house entrances. Inside, he placed devices in common areas, disguised as everyday objects. He set up the monitoring system in his office downtown, in a locked cabinet only he could access. Each night after work, Russell reviewed the footage, building a comprehensive picture of the affair. The evidence accumulated like debris after a storm. Noah visited the shed 3 times that week alone. Vanessa's phone conversations, caught on the kitchen camera, revealed a relationship at least 6 months old. Worse were the intimate moments at home. Noah sitting comfortably at Russell's dining table during a family dinner, playing the devoted brother-in-law while his hand briefly squeezed Vanessa's thigh beneath the tablecloth. Vanessa taking calls on the patio, her laugh different, lighter, when she spoke to Noah. Most devastating was the footage of them discussing Russell. "He's so focused on the business, on providing," Vanessa told Noah during one afternoon tryst. "He stopped seeing me years ago. I became another asset to maintain." "You deserve more," Noah replied, stroking her hair. "You deserve passion, spontaneity, not some robot going through the motions of a perfect life." Russell watched their betrayal unfold in digital clarity, his pain calcifying into something harder, colder, more deliberate. By December, he had amassed hours of damning footage, documented text exchanges from Vanessa's synced iPad, and recorded phone calls that left no question about their intentions. They planned to tell him after Christmas, a gift of truth they decided to bestow once the holidays had passed. They discussed how to minimize the financial impact, how to explain to Madeline, how to handle the eventual fallout at the company. What they failed to discuss, what never seemed to enter their calculations, was what Russell himself might do when confronted with their betrayal. In their narrative, he was a predictable obstacle, a problem to be managed rather than a force to be reckoned with. It was their first mistake. It would not be their last. As Christmas approached, Russell finalized the details of his response. He purchased 3 identical USB drives, backing up his evidence in triplicate. He arranged his schedule, confirmed details, set contingencies. Everything proceeded with the precision of a well-executed construction project. The foundation had been poured. Now it was time to build. Chapter 3: Blueprints of Retribution. Russell maintained his facade. At home, he was the same attentive husband, perhaps slightly more distracted with work, giving Vanessa and Noah additional freedom to meet. At the office, he focused on securing the parks contract, which came through with terms even better than anticipated. He approved Noah's promotion to project manager, earning his brother's surprised gratitude and Vanessa's approving smile. "You've seemed happier lately," Vanessa commented one evening as they prepared dinner side by side. "More relaxed." Russell sliced vegetables with methodical strokes. "Have I? Maybe it's the holiday spirit. Or maybe you're finally finding balance." She touched his arm affectionately. "It's good to see." He covered her hand with his own, noting how easily the deception came to her. "I've been thinking about what matters most." "And what's that?" she asked, reaching past him for the olive oil. "Family," Russell said simply. "Loyalty." Something flickered across Vanessa's expression. Doubt, perhaps, or guilt, before she turned to the stove. "Speaking of family, I invited Noah for dinner tomorrow. Madeline's been asking to see her uncle before she leaves for her campus tour." "Good idea." Russell replied. I've been meaning to discuss the Wilson Project with him anyway. The Wilson Project was entirely fictional, a test to see if Noah would pretend knowledge of it later. Sure enough, at dinner the following night, Noah seamlessly incorporated it into conversation. How's the Wilson Project coming along? He asked, refilling his wine glass. Any progress on those permit issues? Russell's daughter Madeline glanced up from her plate. What's the Wilson Project? Another boring office building. Marina development. Noah answered smoothly. Your dad's turning an old industrial dock into luxury apartments. Russell nodded, filing away this confirmation of Noah's willingness to lie. Slowly but surely, the environmental assessment is the current hurdle. Later that evening, after Madeline had retreated to her room and Vanessa was loading the dishwasher, Noah cornered Russell in his home office. Everything okay with you, Russ? His brother's concern seemed genuine. You've been different lately. Distracted. Russell leaned back in his chair, just thinking about the future. Making plans. Anything you want to talk about? Noah perched on the edge of the desk, an informal, brotherly gesture that now scraped against Russell's nerves like sandpaper. Not yet, Russell replied, still working through some details. Noah studied him for a moment. Well, I'm here if you need me. That's what brothers are for, right? The irony hung heavy in the air between them. Russell merely nodded, his expression revealing nothing. After Noah left, Russell retreated to the basement workroom where he'd established a secondary surveillance hub. Here, away from Vanessa's curious eyes, he monitored the growing archive of their betrayal while developing his strategy for the Christmas revelation. His plan required additional players. The following day, Russell arranged lunch with Garrett Washburn, his attorney and oldest friend. They met at a restaurant far from both office and home, ensuring privacy. You look like hell, Garrett observed bluntly, his weathered face creased with concern. What's going on? Business trouble. Personal, Russell replied. He pushed a sealed envelope across the table. I need you to hold this. Don't open it unless something happens to me in the next month. Garrett's hand stilled on his water glass. That sounds ominous. Are you in some kind of danger? Just a precaution. Russell maintained eye contact. I'm handling a delicate situation. This is insurance. Russell, Garrett lowered his voice, if someone's threatening you. No one's threatening me, Russell interrupted. Yet, but I'm about to make some significant changes, and I want to ensure everything's protected. The envelope contained copies of the surveillance evidence along with detailed instructions. Russell had known Garrett since college. They'd built their respective businesses in parallel, each serving as the other's advisor through professional and personal challenges. Garrett had been Russell's best man, had helped him navigate his parents' estate after their deaths, had never failed to provide straight counsel even when it wasn't welcome. Does this have something to do with the business? With Noah's involvement? Garrett pressed. Russell sipped his coffee. What makes you ask that? You've been carrying your brother for years. Even brought him into the company despite my advice. Garrett's gaze was shrewd. I know loyalty matters to you, but there's a difference between helping family and enabling them. Yes, Russell agreed softly. I'm beginning to understand that difference quite clearly. After extracting Garrett's promise to follow the instructions if necessary, Russell moved to his next appointment. Dr. Lillian Porter had been his personal physician for a decade, a no-nonsense woman whose discretion was as valued as her medical expertise. An MRI? She frowned at his request during his routine physical. What symptoms are you experiencing that would warrant that? Headaches, disorientation, some memory issues. Russell delivered the fabricated symptoms with just enough hesitation to seem like a reluctant patient. Probably nothing, but I'd rather know. Dr. Porter's examination found no abnormalities, but she ultimately agreed to order the scan, scheduling it for the following week. Russell didn't plan to keep the appointment. He simply needed the official request in his medical record. The final piece involved a conversation with Madeline. Russell found his daughter in her studio space, a converted attic room where canvases in various stages lined the walls. Her talent was undeniable, bold, abstract compositions that revealed both technical skill and emotional depth. These are remarkable, Russell said, genuinely impressed by her latest work. You've really found your voice. Madeline looked up, surprise softening into pleasure at his presence. Their relationship had always been cordial but somewhat distant. Art was Vanessa's domain, while Russell handled the practical aspects of parenting, college funds, driving lessons, career guidance. Thanks, Dad. She set down her brush. Mom says the same thing, but it means more coming from you somehow. Russell moved closer, examining a particularly striking canvas. Why's that? Because you see things structurally. Madeline shrugged. You understand foundation, support, integrity. You know when something will stand and when it'll collapse. The observation, delivered so casually, struck Russell with unexpected force. I tried to, he managed. Is everything okay? Madeline tilted her head, studying him with the same intensity she applied to her art. You seem, I don't know, different. Russell considered his response carefully. Madeline was perceptive and fiercely protective of both parents. The last thing he wanted was to draw her into the conflict prematurely. I've been reassessing some priorities, he finally said. Work has always come first, sometimes at the expense of relationships. I'm trying to correct that. Better late than never, I guess. Madeline's smile softened any sting in her words. Mom will be happy to hear that. She's always said you're two different planets in the same orbit, never colliding, but never really connecting either. Russell absorbed this characterization of his marriage, accurate in ways he hadn't recognized until recently. What about you and Noah? How would you describe that relationship? Madeline considered the question. Uncle Noah's fun, but kind of exhausting sometimes. All that charm gets slippery after a while, you know? Like you can't quite get a grip on who he actually is. She returned to her painting. Why do you ask? Just curious. Russell moved toward the door. He's been around more lately. Wanted to make sure you were comfortable with that. He's fine. Madeline applied a bold stroke of crimson to her canvas. But between us, I'd rather have your steady reliability any day. At least I always know where I stand with you. The conversation provided Russell with crucial insight. Madeline's loyalty, while divided between her parents, was fundamentally secure. She would weather the coming storm with the resilience she'd inherited from him. By mid-December, Russell had established all necessary groundwork for his plan. The surveillance system continued capturing damning evidence daily. His legal affairs were in order, with Garrett positioned as both witness and executor if needed. The medical record established a potential explanation for any unusual behavior, should his actions be questioned later. Most importantly, Russell had mapped the emotional landscape surrounding his targets. Vanessa's guilt manifested in overcompensation, elaborate holiday decorations, increased attention to family traditions, careful inquiries about Russell's gift preferences. Noah's manifested as avoidance, missed family dinners, delayed project reports, vague excuses about personal commitments. Both believed they controlled the narrative, that Russell remained oblivious to their betrayal. This misconception was his greatest advantage. The final component fell into place when Vanessa announced their Christmas plans. Dinner at home on Christmas Eve with Madeline, Noah, and Garrett, a tradition of including orphaned friends, followed by their annual Christmas Day open house for business associates and neighbors. I thought we'd do something special this year, Vanessa said, reviewing her guest list at the kitchen island. Individual gifts for our closest people instead of the usual gift cards. Russell, reviewing construction documents beside her, looked up with interest. What did you have in mind? Something personal, meaningful. She tapped her pen against the paper. For Madeline, I found a first edition book on Frida Kahlo. For Garrett, vintage scotch. For Noah, she hesitated slightly. I thought maybe those concert tickets he's been talking about. Good ideas, Russell nodded. I like to contribute something as well. For each of them. Vanessa glanced at him in surprise. Russell typically delegated gift giving to her, supplying his credit card but little input. Really? That would be wonderful. I was thinking something technological, Russell continued. Everyone can use additional storage these days. Like external hard drives? Vanessa looked dubious. Not very festive. Russell allowed a small smile. Trust me, I'll make it special. 3 days before Christmas, Russell made his final preparations. He carefully selected footage from his surveillance archive, organizing separate compilations for Vanessa, Noah, and a much more limited version for Garrett. Each USB drive was loaded with its designated content, then wrapped in identical small boxes with personalized gift tags. For Vanessa's compilation, Russell included their most intimate betrayals, her disparaging comments about their marriage, her discussions with Noah about dividing assets, moments of physical affection in spaces Russell considered sacred, their home, the garden he'd landscaped for her birthday, even their bed on one occasion when Russell had been working late. For Noah's, Russell emphasized the brotherhood betrayal. Conversations where Noah had criticized Russell's character, business decisions made to undermine Russell's authority at the company, explicit recordings of physical involvement, with Vanessa interspersed with footage of Noah accepting Russell's professional support and financial assistance. For Garrett, Russell provided only enough evidence to establish the affair's existence and his awareness of it, along with a time-stamped document outlining Russell's mental state and intentions. This USB also contained legal instructions to be implemented depending on how events unfolded. On December 23rd, Russell placed the wrapped USB packages in his office safe, then drove to the construction company for a final review of his professional arrangements. While there, he transferred significant operational authority to Darla through a series of subtle organizational changes, officially labeled streamlining for growth. When questioned about these adjustments by the financial controller, Russell explained them as preparation for expanding into new markets after the new year. The explanation was accepted without further inquiry. Russell's business acumen had earned him considerable latitude with his executive team. That evening, as Russell finalized his preparations, Vanessa received a text message. From his monitoring station, Russell watched her read it, observed the color drain from her face, noticed her hands tremble as she typed a response. Though he couldn't see the message content, her reaction told him everything he needed to know. Someone had sent her a warning. Someone had compromised his plan. Russell adjusted his timeline immediately. If Vanessa had been alerted, Noah had likely been warned as well. He needed to act before they could coordinate a response. Christmas Eve would now be the moment of revelation, not Christmas Day as originally planned. The audience would be smaller, the impact more concentrated. The stage was set for a more intimate destruction. Russell pocketed the key to his safe, straightened his tie, and prepared to join his wife for dinner. Whatever warning they'd received, it was already too late. The trap had been set months ago, and they'd been walking deeper into it with every secret meeting, every whispered conversation, every betrayal. Tomorrow would bring gifts no one would ever forget. Chapter 4. The Gathering Storm. Christmas Eve morning broke with perfect seasonal splendor, a light dusting of snow blanketing Greenwich overnight, just enough to transform the landscape without disrupting travel plans. Russell woke early, watching pale sunlight illuminate the pristine white yard. In the distance, the garden shed stood like a miniature gingerbread house, innocent under its snow cap. Beside him, Vanessa slept fitfully, her brow furrowed, even in unconsciousness. Since receiving the mysterious text, she'd been uncharacteristically tense, checking her phone constantly and initiating unnecessary conversations about trivial household matters. Twice she'd mentioned Noah's name in casual contexts, as if determined to normalize his presence in their discussions. Russell slipped from bed without waking her and dressed in running clothes. The Christmas Eve run had been his tradition for years, 5 miles regardless of weather, a personal ritual that cleared his mind for the holiday obligations ahead. Today it would serve a different purpose. The frigid air burned his lungs as Russell established his pace. 3 blocks from home, he diverted from his usual route toward the modest apartment complex, where Noah had lived since Russell had brought him into the company. Russell had a key. He'd co-signed the lease, another act of brotherly support that now tasted like ash. Noah's motorcycle was parked under its protective cover, frost sparkling on the tarp. Russell entered silently, listening for movement. From the bedroom came the sound of Noah's distinctive snore, a childhood trait that had once been the subject of brotherly teasing during camping trips with their father. Moving systematically through the apartment, Russell gathered what he needed. Noah's laptop, his external backup drive, and, most critically, his phone, left carelessly charging on the kitchen counter. Russell connected each device to a small electronic tool he'd acquired from a digital security specialist, cloning their contents in minutes. He returned everything to its exact position and departed, leaving no trace of his visit. 6 minutes later, he was back on his regular running path, maintaining his usual pace. Should anyone verify his movements through fitness tracking apps or neighborhood surveillance cameras, they would find nothing suspicious about Russell Harmon's Christmas Eve ritual. Back home, Russell showered while reviewing what he discovered. The warning text had indeed come from someone identifying themselves only as a friend, alerting both Vanessa and Noah that Russell knows everything, and they should be careful at Christmas. The message had triggered a flurry of panicked communications between the lovers, debate about whether to confront Russell immediately or proceed with their original timeline, and ultimately a decision to act normal, while expediting their post-holiday plans. Most importantly, Russell had confirmed the source of the warning: Lynn Palmer, Vanessa's gallery assistant and closest confidant. A simple text exchange on Noah's phone revealed Lynn had overheard Russell speaking with Garrett at a restaurant, connecting enough fragments to suspect that Russell had discovered the affair. This leak presented both challenge and opportunity. Russell made a quick adjustment to his plan, then headed downstairs to join the holiday preparations. The house had been transformed into a Christmas showcase. Vanessa had outdone herself this year, perhaps driven by subconscious guilt. Fresh pine garlands draped every doorway, cinnamon-scented candles glowed on tabletops, and the 12-foot tree in the great room sparkled with ornaments collected over their years together, including the hand-painted ceramic stars they'd exchanged during their first Christmas as a couple. Madeline was already in the kitchen, assembling ingredients for her contribution to dinner, an elaborate cheese soufflé she'd perfected during her culinary phase 2 years prior. "Morning, Dad," she greeted him, measuring flour. "Productive run?" "Very," Russell replied, pouring himself coffee. "Need any help with that?" Madeline gave him a skeptical look. "The man who burns microwave popcorn wants to help with a soufflé? I think not." Russell laughed, genuinely despite everything. "Fair point. I'll stick to table setting." Vanessa emerged, wrapped in the cashmere robe Russell had given her last Christmas. Her smile seemed forced, her movements slightly too deliberate as she kissed Madeline's cheek and squeezed Russell's arm. "Everything on schedule?" she asked, accepting the coffee mug he offered. "Right on track," Russell confirmed, meeting her eyes steadily. "Should be our most memorable Christmas yet." Something in his tone made Vanessa's hand tighten around her mug. "That's the goal," she said after a beat. "Oh, Garrett called. He's bringing that woman from his office. Simone? Said you told him it was fine." "Absolutely," Russell nodded. "The more the merrier." This was untrue. Russell had specifically asked Garrett to come alone, and his friend would never have altered such arrangements without consultation. The fabrication was Vanessa's clumsy attempt to dilute the evening's intimacy by adding an unknown element. And Noah texted. Vanessa continued with studied casualness. "He's running a little late. Client emergency." Another lie. Noah had spent the morning frantically researching divorce attorneys who specialized in business assets, according to his browsing history. Russell merely nodded, allowing Vanessa to believe her deceptions were successful. The day progressed with surface normality overlaying simmering tension. Russell handled his assigned duties, setting the formal dining table, building the traditional evening fire, retrieving the special occasion wine from the cellar. Vanessa prepared the prime rib and Yorkshire pudding that had been their Christmas Eve menu since their second year of marriage. Madeline alternated between cooking assistance and texting friends about their holiday activities. At 4:30 p.m., Russell excused himself to retrieve the final gifts from his office safe. The 3 USB packages sat exactly as he'd left them, gleaming with metallic ribbon and personalized gift tags. He added them to the elegant gift bag containing Vanessa's official present, an emerald necklace she'd admired months ago, chosen now for its bitter symbolism. Emeralds were traditional 20th anniversary stones, a milestone they would never reach. When Russell returned, Vanessa was arranging fresh flowers in the dining room, her back to the entryway. He paused, studying his wife of 12 years. The graceful line of her neck, the auburn hair now threaded with subtle silver at the temples, the hands that had once cupped his face with genuine love. For a moment, grief threatened to overtake his resolve. "Those look beautiful," he said quietly. Vanessa started, nearly dropping a stem. "You startled me." Her laugh sounded brittle. "Thank you. I wanted everything to be perfect tonight." "It will be," Russell assured her, setting the gift bag beneath the tree. One way or another. At precisely 6 p.m., Garrett arrived, alone, as Russell had requested. His shrewd eyes took in the tense atmosphere immediately, though his social graces remained impeccable as he handed Vanessa a bottle of champagne and complimented the decorations. "Merry Christmas, Russell." Garrett embraced his friend with unusual solemnity. "Everything all right?" "Soon will be," Russell replied quietly. "Follow my lead tonight." Garrett gave an imperceptible nod, then turned to greet Madeline with avuncular enthusiasm. Noah arrived 20 minutes late, his typical punctuality compromised by obvious anxiety. He carried too many packages, laughed too loudly at Madeline's sarcastic welcome, and made a show of appreciating the holiday decorations he'd barely acknowledged in previous years. Most tellingly, he maintained physical distance from Vanessa, positioning Garrett or Madeline between them whenever possible. This unnatural choreography would have been Russell's first clue had he not already possessed irrefutable evidence of their relationship. Dinner proceeded with superficial pleasantness. The food was excellent, the wine well chosen, the conversation carefully steered towards safe topics. Madeline's college applications, Garrett's recent sailing victory, the company's successful bid on the park's contract. Beneath this civilized veneer, Russell observed the subtle communications between Vanessa and Noah. Anxious glances, a hand that trembled while passing the salt, synchronized bathroom breaks that allowed for 30 seconds of whispered consultation in the hallway, captured clearly on Russell's kitchen surveillance camera. After dinner, they moved to the great room for the traditional gift exchange. Russell positioned himself near the tree, assuming the role of distribution that had always been Noah's in previous years. This small disruption of pattern increased the lovers' visible discomfort. "Let's start with Madeline," Russell announced, handing his daughter an elegantly wrapped package. "From your mother and me." Madeline's delight at the rare art book was genuine, as was her appreciation for the accompanying scholarship certificate to a prestigious summer program in Paris. She hugged both parents with equal enthusiasm, momentarily bridging the gulf that had opened between them. Garrett next, Russell continued, passing his friend an expensive bottle of scotch for Vanessa and an antique fountain pen set that had belonged to Russell's father. "For all those contracts you keep saving me from," Russell explained, his tone light despite the weighted glance they exchanged. And now, Russell reached beneath the tree, something special for Vanessa and Noah. He withdrew the small, identically wrapped USB packages, presenting them with ceremonial formality. "I've put a lot of thought into these," he said, his voice steady. "They represent my appreciation for the roles you both play in my life." Vanessa accepted her package with visible trepidation. Noah's hand actually trembled as he took his, a fine sheen of sweat gleaming on his forehead despite the room's moderate temperature. "Should we open them now?" Vanessa asked, her voice unnaturally high. "Oh yes." Russell returned to his armchair, positioning himself to observe both their faces. "I insist." Garrett, sensing the undercurrents, moved subtly closer to Madeline, a protective gesture that Russell acknowledged with a grateful glance. Vanessa and Noah unwrapped their packages simultaneously, revealing the identical USB drives nestled in velvet boxes. Confusion replaced anxiety on their faces temporarily. External storage. Noah attempted a light chuckle. "Always practical, brother." "Not just storage," Russell corrected. "Content. I've become quite the filmmaker recently. I think you'll find my work illuminating." The color drained from Vanessa's face. "What kind of content?" she whispered. "Why don't you see for yourself?" Russell suggested. "Madeline, would you mind getting my laptop from the study? And the portable projector?" Sure. Madeline rose, oblivious to the tension thickening the air. Movie night on Christmas Eve? New tradition. Something like that. Russell smiled tightly. Hurry back. The moment Madeline left the room, Vanessa lunged to her feet. Russell, whatever you think you know. I don't think, Russell interrupted calmly. I know. 6 months, 3 weeks, and 4 days. That's how long it's been happening. Initially in hotels, the Marriott on Westchester Avenue was your favorite. Then the gallery after hours. Most recently, our home. My garden shed. My bed. Noah's face had gone ashen. Russell, we can explain. No need, Russell cut him off. I've heard all your explanations. Through state-of-the-art surveillance equipment installed throughout our property. Every conversation, every liaison, every betrayal cataloged and time-stamped. Vanessa sank back in her chair, the USB drive clutched in her bloodless fingers. You've been spying on us? For how long? Long enough, Russell replied. Those drives contain carefully selected highlights. Yours focuses on your remarkable ability to compartmentalize. Planning our anniversary dinner in the same conversation where you discussed divorce strategy with my brother. Noah's emphasizes his talent for simultaneous backstabbing and handshaking, accepting my financial support while undermining me professionally and personally. Jesus Christ, Garrett muttered, his legal mind clearly calculating the implications. There are additional copies, Russell continued, his voice steady despite the rage and pain roiling beneath his composed exterior. One in my attorney's possession, one in my safe deposit box, one with a digital security service programmed to release the content to specific parties if I don't enter a monthly code. What parties? Noah demanded, his voice cracking. The company board, Madeline, Mom's church group. Russell listed them with clinical detachment. I believe they call it mutually assured destruction. Madeline's footsteps sounded in the hallway, returning with the requested electronics. Russell raised a finger to his lips in warning. Not a word in front of her. We'll continue this discussion after she's gone to her friend's party at 10. Vanessa and Noah froze in tableau, the evidence of their betrayal clutched in trembling hands as Madeline re-entered bearing Russell's laptop. Got it, she announced cheerfully. What are we watching? Nothing right now. Russell smoothly pivoted. I just remembered the battery needs charging. Why don't we finish opening gifts first? The remainder of the gift exchange proceeded in surreal juxtaposition. Cheerful holiday tradition layered over catastrophic revelation. Madeline remained blissfully unaware, though she occasionally cast curious glances at the adults' strained interactions. At 9:45, Madeline's friend arrived to collect her for the previously arranged party. Russell hugged his daughter with genuine warmth. Have fun, he told her. Don't wake us when you come in. When the door closed behind Madeline, the room's atmosphere shifted instantly from forced festivity to primal confrontation. Vanessa was the first to speak, her voice raw with emotion. What do you want, Russell? To humiliate us? To destroy us? Her hands twisted together in her lap. Is this revenge? This is consequence, Russell corrected, pouring himself another measure of scotch. Garrett, would you mind giving us some privacy? This is family business. Are you sure? Garrett's concern was evident. I'm happy to stay if you need a witness. I have all the witnesses I need. Russell gestured toward the ceiling, where one of his hidden cameras was positioned in a smoke detector. But thank you. After Garrett's reluctant departure, Russell settled into his chair, studying the two people who had betrayed him most profoundly. Their performance of righteousness had evaporated, replaced by the naked fear of exposure. So, Russell said quietly, shall we discuss terms? Chapter 5. Terms of Engagement. A heavy silence blanketed the room after Garrett's departure. Russell remained seated, one leg casually crossed over the other, the picture of composure. Vanessa and Noah had instinctively drawn closer together on the sofa, united now in their exposed guilt. Terms. Noah finally broke the silence, his voice hoarse. What kind of terms are you offering? Russell took a measured sip of scotch. I'm not offering anything. I'm dictating conditions under which we all might survive this with minimal collateral damage. You can't be serious, Vanessa whispered, her face ashen beneath her carefully applied makeup. You're threatening to destroy our lives unless we— What? Beg forgiveness? Crawl away in shame. Destruction is coming regardless, Russell replied evenly. The question is scope and scale. Right now, this remains contained, a private betrayal with private consequences. If you fight me, it becomes public, professional, legal. The Christmas tree lights cast colored shadows across their faces, the festive patterns incongruous against the tableau of family implosion. Outside, carolers could be heard moving through the neighborhood, their harmonies floating disconnected through the winter air. What exactly do you want? Noah leaned forward, attempting to reclaim some control of the situation. Russell set down his glass. First, complete honesty. How long has this been going on? The real timeline, not what I've pieced together from surveillance. Vanessa and Noah exchanged glances, a silent calculation passing between them. Finally, Vanessa spoke. 14 months, she admitted, her gaze dropping to her hands. Since the Thompson project opening. The revelation landed like a physical blow, though Russell maintained his composed expression. His earliest footage had captured them only 6 months ago. The betrayal ran deeper than he'd confirmed. The night I was hospitalized with pneumonia, Russell noted with grim understanding. While I was on 4 antibiotics, you were initiating an affair with my brother. Noah flinched visibly. It wasn't planned, Russell. It just happened. Nothing just happens for 14 months, Russell countered. Continue. I want details. For the next hour, Russell extracted the affair's complete history through precise, unemotional questioning. The Thompson Project celebration dinner, where Noah had comforted Vanessa during Russell's absence. The first kiss in the gallery storeroom 3 weeks later. The progression from emotional affair to physical relationship during a business trip Russell had been too ill to attend. The careful coordination of schedules, the alibi system they developed, the private email accounts and burner phones. Each revelation was documented by Russell's ever-present recorder, his expression revealing nothing while his internal architecture absorbed repeated seismic shocks. Enough, he finally said, raising a hand to halt Noah's stammering explanation of their post-divorce plans. I understand the situation clearly now. What are you going to do? Vanessa asked, her voice small. Russell stood, pacing deliberately before the fireplace. That depends entirely on your compliance with my terms. He turned to face them, his back to the fire, features cast in shadow. First, the marriage is over. Vanessa, you'll move out tomorrow, Christmas Day. Tell Madeline whatever story you prefer, but you'll be gone before our guests arrive for the open house. Vanessa gasped. Tomorrow? That's impossible. Where would I go? What about Madeline? You have a lover with an apartment, Russell replied coldly. And Madeline is 18, legally an adult. She can decide her own visitation schedule. Noah shifted uncomfortably. Russ, be reasonable. It's Christmas. At least give Vanessa until after the holidays. Second, Russell continued as if Noah hadn't spoken. The divorce will proceed according to the terms outlined in our prenuptial agreement. No contests, no delays, no attempts to claim business assets. The prenup is 12 years old, Vanessa protested. My lawyer will argue. Your lawyer will receive copies of my surveillance footage if you contest a single comma, Russell interrupted. Most states frown on adultery, particularly when it involves family members. Vanessa fell silent, the legal reality sinking in. The prenuptial agreement she'd signed, back when Russell had been a promising builder with modest assets and she a gallery assistant with artistic aspirations, entitled her to little beyond her personal property and a fixed settlement that would seem paltry against their current lifestyle. Third, Russell turned to Noah. Your position at the company is terminated, effective immediately. Your client relationships will be transferred to Darla Green. Your projects reassigned. Your office cleared before business resumes after New Year's. Noah surged to his feet. You can't do that. I put 5 years into this company. I brought in major accounts, developed relationships, while embezzling company resources and plotting to undermine my leadership, Russell finished for him. Yes, I know about your meetings with Westridge Development. The surveillance wasn't limited to your sexual activities. Noah's face drained of color. Westridge was their main competitor, and Noah had indeed been exploring opportunities there, including sharing proprietary information about Harmon Construction's bidding strategies. This revelation clearly blindsided even Vanessa, who turned to Noah with shocked betrayal. "You were planning to leave the company?" she asked. "You never said anything." "It was a backup plan," Noah insisted desperately, "in case Russell didn't handle the divorce well. I was protecting our future by committing corporate espionage," Russell noted dryly. "Fortunately for you, I'm offering an alternative to criminal charges." He returned to his chair, once again the calm center in the emotional hurricane. "You'll sign a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement covering both the company and our personal situation. You'll forfeit all unvested stock options and accept a severance package contingent on ongoing compliance." Noah slumped back onto the sofa, defeated by the comprehensive nature of Russell's counterattack. "And if I refuse? Then the board receives evidence of your communications with Westridge, along with footage of you accessing confidential files after hours. The police received documentation of company resources misappropriated for personal use, including that weekend in Nantucket that Harmon Construction apparently funded." Russell allowed this to sink in before delivering the final blow. "Additionally, your mother receives the complete video archive of your affair with her daughter-in-law. I believe she still attends weekly services at First Episcopal. The congregation would certainly provide comfort during such a shocking revelation." Noah blanched. Their mother's health had been fragile since their father's death. Her religious faith and community standing were central pillars of her stability. This threat struck at Noah's one remaining vulnerability, his genuine devotion to their mother. "You wouldn't," he whispered. "I would prefer not to," Russell conceded, the first hint of genuine emotion coloring his voice. "But make no mistake, Noah, you destroyed my family. I will not hesitate to incinerate what remains of yours if necessary." Vanessa had been watching this exchange with growing horror, the full implications of their situation becoming clear. "What about us?" she asked quietly. "Noah and me?" Russell regarded them both with clinical detachment. "Your relationship is your business. After you've both exited my life according to these terms. Whether it survives without the excitement of betrayal and secret rendezvous remains to be seen." He checked his watch. "It's nearly midnight. Christmas Day begins in 7 minutes. You have until then to accept these terms, or I upload selected footage to the cloud where it will be automatically distributed tomorrow morning." The ultimatum hung in the air like smoke. Noah and Vanessa exchanged desperate glances. Their romantic partnership suddenly transformed into a survival pact. "This is blackmail," Vanessa finally said, though her tone lacked conviction. "This is efficiency," Russell corrected. "I'm offering the cleanest possible amputation, a chance to cauterize the wound and move forward without permanent destruction on all sides." He leaned forward slightly. "For minutes remaining." "I accept," Noah said abruptly, his shoulders sagging in defeat. "I'll sign whatever you want." Vanessa stared at him in disbelief. "Just like that? You're giving up everything we planned?" "We have no choice, Van," Noah replied bitterly. "He has everything: evidence, legal advantage, financial control. We either accept his terms or lose everything anyway, plus face public humiliation." Russell observed their disintegration with grim satisfaction. The unity they demonstrated in betraying him was crumbling under pressure, revealing the fragile foundation of their relationship. 2 minutes, he noted. Vanessa closed her eyes briefly, then nodded. "I accept the terms. I'll be gone tomorrow." "A wise decision," Russell confirmed, pressing a button on his phone. "Garrett will deliver the necessary paperwork tomorrow afternoon. Sign immediately and return it with him." The grandfather clock in the hallway began its solemn midnight chime, marking Christmas Day's arrival. Russell stood, adjusting his sleeves. "Merry Christmas," he said without inflection. "You're welcome to let yourselves out. I suggest removing any personal items you wish to keep, Vanessa. The locks will be changed by noon." He moved toward the stairs with measured steps, then paused, turning back to face the shattered remains of his family. "One final condition. Madeline returns from her party at approximately 1 a.m. You will both be gone before then. I will explain the situation to my daughter myself, when and how I deem appropriate. Without waiting for acknowledgement, Russell ascended the stairs to the master bedroom, closed the door, and finally allowed his composed facade to crumble. He sank onto the edge of the bed, trembling with the aftermath of adrenaline and suppressed emotion. The victory felt hollow, contaminated by the depth of the betrayal it addressed. His phone buzzed with a text from Garrett. All clear? Russell replied simply, terms accepted. Papers tomorrow. Then he removed his clothes, showered in scalding water as if to cleanse himself of the evening's revelations, and prepared for bed with the same routine he'd followed for decades. Everything had changed, yet the mechanics of existence continued. Teeth brushed, face washed, pajamas donned. He lay in the center of the king bed that had, until tonight, been shared with Vanessa for 12 years. The house below was silent. They had departed as instructed. Through the bedroom window, Russell could see fresh snow beginning to fall, covering yesterday's footprints with pristine blankness. When Madeline returned from her party, Russell was still awake, staring at the ceiling as the foundation of his life continued to shift beneath him. He heard her quiet movements, the careful closing of the front door, the soft pad of footsteps checking the darkened living room, the brief pause outside his bedroom door before she continued to her own room. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, explaining to Madeline, managing the planned holiday gathering, beginning the practical dismantling of his marriage. But tonight, in the quiet darkness of Christmas morning, Russell Harmon allowed himself to mourn what had been lost and acknowledge the uncertainty of what lay ahead. The revenge he had orchestrated brought neither satisfaction nor closure, only the grim completion of necessary amputation. The infection had been cut away, but the wound remained raw and exposed, its healing far from guaranteed. Chapter 6: Collateral Damage. The morning after Christmas brought a crystalline clarity to Greenwich, Connecticut. Fresh snow glittered beneath an azure sky as holiday decorations cast colored reflections across unblemished white drifts. Inside the Harmon residence, the atmosphere held none of this pristine serenity. Russell had risen before dawn, unable to find rest in the bed that now felt cavernous without Vanessa beside him. He'd spent the early hours in his home office, deactivating surveillance equipment and archiving the accumulated footage in encrypted files. By 7, he had transferred all evidence to secure digital storage and removed every camera from the property, erasing the physical traces of his investigation. When Madeline wandered downstairs shortly after 8, still in pajamas and with the rumpled appearance of youth recovering from holiday celebration, Russell was prepared. He sat at the kitchen island, 2 mugs of coffee steaming before him, his expression composed but grave. "Morning, Dad," Madeline mumbled, making a beeline for the offered caffeine. "Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas, Maddie," Russell replied, using the childhood nickname deliberately. "Sleep okay?" She shrugged, curling her hands around the warm mug. "I guess. Came in pretty late. Where's Mom? Usually she's got the Christmas morning cinnamon rolls going by now." Russell met his daughter's eyes directly. "Your mother isn't here. She won't be joining us today." Madeline's sleepy confusion sharpened into alert concern. "What? Where is she?" "She's with Noah," Russell stated simply. "She's moved out." Madeline set down her mug with exaggerated care. "What are you talking about? Moved out where? Why would she be with Uncle Noah on Christmas morning instead of here?" Russell had rehearsed this conversation carefully, determined to balance honesty with discretion. Madeline deserved truth without unnecessary cruelty. "Your mother and I have separated," he explained in measured tones. "It's been developing for some time, though the timing is unfortunate." "That's impossible," Madeline protested. "You guys were fine yesterday. We all had dinner together. You gave her that emerald necklace." "Appearances can be misleading," Russell said quietly. "Your mother has been involved with Noah for over a year. They're together now, and she won't be returning to this house." The color drained from Madeline's face as comprehension dawned. "Mom and Uncle Noah? That's disgusting." Her voice rose with each word. You're making this up. It can't be true. Russell maintained steady eye contact. I wish it weren't true, Maddie. For your sake, more than mine. But it is. Did she tell you this? Did they confess or something? Madeline demanded, tears forming despite her evident anger. Because people don't just blow up their entire lives on Christmas Eve without some kind of warning. I discovered their relationship, Russell confirmed, omitting the surveillance details. They confirmed it last night, after you left for Sophie's party. We agreed it was best for your mother to leave immediately. Madeline pushed away from the counter, pacing the kitchen with agitated energy. This is insane. Completely insane. I'm calling her. She grabbed her phone from her pajama pocket, but Russell made no move to stop her. This reaction had been anticipated. The confrontation was inevitable. Vanessa answered on the third ring, her voice wary. Madeline? Merry Christmas, sweetheart. Where are you? Madeline demanded, putting the call on speaker without prompting. A brief hesitation. I'm with your Uncle Noah. Something's happened. Are you sleeping with him? Madeline's directness sliced through any pretense. Dad says you've been having an affair and you've left us. On Christmas. Silence stretched painfully before Vanessa replied. It's complicated, Maddie. Your father and I have had problems for years. Noah and I, it didn't start out. Oh my God. Madeline cut her off, horror and disgust mingling in her expression. It's actually true. I never wanted to hurt you. Vanessa's voice cracked with emotion. This isn't how we planned to tell you. Your father forced. Don't. Russell interrupted with quiet authority. Don't make this about timing or approach. Own your decisions, Vanessa. Madeline stared at the phone, then at her father, tears now flowing freely. How could you do this? Both of you? Our whole family. Was any of it even real? Of course it was real, Vanessa insisted desperately. I love you more than anything, Madeline. That hasn't changed. I want to see you to explain. I don't want your explanations. Madeline shouted, her composure shattering completely. I don't want to see either of you. God, Uncle Noah, how could you be so? Words failed her as sobs took over. Russell moved to his daughter's side, placing a supportive hand on her shoulder. She didn't shrug it off, which he counted as a small victory. Madeline, please, Vanessa pleaded. Let me come get you. You shouldn't be alone on Christmas. I'm not alone, Madeline responded, leaning slightly into Russell's touch. I'm with Dad. The simple declaration hung in the air, its implications cutting deeper than any deliberate cruelty could have. In that moment, Madeline had chosen sides, and Vanessa understood the magnitude of what she'd lost. I see. Vanessa's voice had gone very quiet. When you're ready to talk, I'll be here. Don't hold your breath, Madeline snapped, ending the call with trembling fingers. She turned to Russell, anger temporarily overshadowing grief. Did you know? Before yesterday, I mean. Were there signs I missed? Russell considered his response carefully. There were inconsistencies I noticed eventually, he acknowledged. But I trusted them both completely. Perhaps too completely. This partial truth seemed to satisfy Madeline, who collapsed onto a kitchen stool, emotional exhaustion evident in every line of her body. What happens now? To all of us. Your mother and I will divorce, Russell explained gently. You're 18, so custody isn't a legal issue, but you're welcome to live here as long as you want, through college and beyond if necessary. And the holiday party? The guests will be here in a few hours. Russell had already addressed this complication. I've canceled it. Garrett is contacting everyone with our apologies. Family emergency. Madeline nodded, seemingly relieved to be spared the performance of holiday cheer. What about Noah? Is he still working for you? No. Russell's tone hardened slightly. His employment has been terminated. Good, Madeline said with unexpected vehemence. He deserves worse. They sat in silence for several minutes, the festive decorations surrounding them in grotesque contradiction to the moment's gravity. Finally, Madeline looked up at her father, her expression vulnerable yet determined. I'm supposed to go to Boston tomorrow, she said, referring to her planned visit to potential colleges. Do you think I should cancel? Russell recognized the importance of this question. Madeline was seeking guidance on whether to allow this crisis to derail her future plans, whether normal life could or should continue amid emotional devastation. "I think you should go," he advised gently. "Education remains important, regardless of family difficulties, and some distance from this situation might provide helpful perspective." Madeline nodded slowly. "Will you be okay? Here alone?" The question caught Russell off guard. Throughout the marriage, he had been the family's emotional foundation. No one had ever inquired about his well-being with such genuine concern. "I'll manage," he assured her, touched by her consideration. "I've got the business to focus on, and Garrett will help with the legal details." Madeline studied him with surprising perception. "You're being really calm about all this. If it were me, I'd be destroying everything they own." A flicker of genuine amusement crossed Russell's face. "Who says I'm not?" This hint of retribution seemed to satisfy something in Madeline. She straightened slightly, wiping away tears with renewed resolve. "What can I do to help?" "Live your life," Russell said simply. "Focus on your art, your college applications, your future." That's the best possible response to their choices. Madeline considered this, then nodded decisively. "Okay, but I'm still going to hate them for a while." "That's your right," Russell acknowledged. "Just don't let that hatred define you. They made their choices. We make ours." The remainder of Christmas Day passed in subdued activity. Russell and Madeline abandoned most holiday traditions, instead working together to reorganize the house, removing family photos that featured Noah, relocating Vanessa's personal items to the guest room for later collection, systematically reclaiming the space as their own. By evening, the physical evidence of betrayal had been largely erased, though emotional aftershocks continued to reverberate through quiet moments. They ordered Chinese food, an unprecedented departure from holiday tradition, and ate in the den while watching action movies that required minimal emotional investment. As promised, Garrett arrived late afternoon with legal documents for Russell's review. While Madeline retreated upstairs to pack for her Boston trip, the two men spoke quietly in Russell's office. Both signed without argument, Garrett confirmed, passing over the separation agreement and non-disclosure contracts. Vanessa looked shell-shocked. Noah seemed almost relieved, like he's been expecting consequences for years and is just glad the waiting is over. Russell examined the signatures with clinical detachment. "Any issues I should know about?" Vanessa mentioned challenging the prenup, but I reminded her about your evidence archive. Garrett hesitated. "Russell, are you sure about this approach? It's legally sound, but extraordinarily severe. They'll have minimal assets, restricted professional options. They'll survive," Russell interrupted without looking up. They found each other very comforting during their betrayal. That comfort can sustain them now. Garrett studied his oldest friend with professional concern. "And you? How will you survive?" Russell finally raised his gaze from the documents. "By removing the infection before it destroys everything I've built. The company will weather this," Garrett assured him. "I've prepared statements explaining Noah's sudden departure, family relocation, nothing scandalous. Darla Green is already contacting his clients to ensure continuity." "Good," Russell nodded. "And the other matter?" Garrett withdrew a final document from his briefcase. "As requested, control transfers immediately, though the public announcement won't happen until after New Year's." This paper represented Russell's most significant countermeasure. Effective immediately, Darla Green would assume operational control of Harmon Construction as Chief Operating Officer, with Russell stepping back to a strategic advisory role. This organizational restructuring protected the company from any instability caused by Russell's personal situation, while positioning it for continued growth regardless of his emotional capacity. "You're sure about this?" Garrett pressed. "You've run this company since you were 22. It's been your entire identity." "Not my entire identity," Russell corrected, signing the document without hesitation. "Just the most visible part." After Garrett departed, Russell found Madeline in her studio, half-heartedly sorting through art supplies for her trip. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but dry, her movements mechanical. "All set for tomorrow?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe. "I guess," she shrugged. "Feels weird to be thinking about college when everything's falling apart." "Not everything," Russell countered gently. Just one relationship. An important one, certainly, but not the foundation of your existence. Madeline looked up, her expression haunted. Isn't it, though? Parents are supposed to be forever. The one constant. If that can just disintegrate, what can we actually count on? The question cut to the heart of Russell's own struggle. The fundamental reassessment of certainty that betrayal necessitates. He moved into the room, sitting beside his daughter on the paint-splattered bench. We can count on our responses, he said carefully. Not on circumstances remaining perfect, not on other people's choices, but on our own capacity to adapt and rebuild when necessary. Like your buildings, Madeline noted with unexpected insight. You're always talking about flexible foundations that can absorb shocks without cracking. Russell smiled faintly. Exactly like that. Good design anticipates stress and incorporates it into the structure. Madeline leaned against his shoulder, a childhood gesture she'd largely abandoned in recent years. I'm still going to be mad for a long time. Of course, Russell agreed, putting his arm around her. Anger has its purpose in the rebuilding process. Just don't let it become the foundation itself. They sat together in companionable silence until Madeline yawned, the emotional exhaustion of the day finally catching up with her. Russell sent her to bed with promises to drive her to the train station in the morning, then returned to his own room. The master bedroom still held traces of Vanessa despite their efforts to neutralize the space. The faint scent of her perfume lingering in the closet, the indentation on her pillow, the reading glasses she'd forgotten on the nightstand. Russell gathered these remnants, placing them in a box for eventual return. His phone buzzed with a text message. Noah's name appeared on the screen, an unwelcome intrusion into the evening's fragile equilibrium. Russell almost deleted it unread, but professional instinct prevailed. Information, even painful, had value. I know you hate me now, and you should, but there's something you need to know about the Westridge situation. Call me when you're ready. It's important. Russell stared at the message, considering its implications. Noah had admitted to corporate espionage during last night's confrontation, but the text suggested additional complications. Was this a genuine warning or merely a ploy to re-establish contact? Either way, Russell had no intention of engaging. He forwarded the message to Darla with instructions to investigate Westridge more thoroughly, then blocked Noah's number entirely. The severance between them needed to be complete. No lingering connections, no avenues for manipulation or reconciliation. As midnight approached, Russell completed his final task of Christmas Day. Seated at his desk, he drafted a series of emails to be sent at strategic intervals over the coming weeks. Notifications to extended family about the separation, vague regarding causes. Instructions to the company's leadership team about the restructuring, transfer documents for selected assets to ensure Madeline's financial security regardless of divorce proceedings. Each message represented another structural support in the new reality Russell was constructing from the wreckage of betrayal. The architect in him recognized that rebuilding required more than simply removing damaged elements. It demanded comprehensive reimagining of the entire design. The last email went to Lynn Palmer, Vanessa's gallery assistant, who had attempted to warn the lovers about Russell's discovery. The message was brief but clear. Her employment would continue unaffected by the divorce, but any further involvement in personal matters would result in immediate termination. Russell held no particular animosity toward the young woman. Her loyalty to Vanessa was understandable, but boundaries needed establishment. Task complete, Russell finally allowed himself the release of genuine emotion. Alone in the silence of his reconfigured home, he permitted tears that had been strategically suppressed throughout the confrontation and its aftermath. They came not in heaving sobs, but in quiet streams, the grief work of a man acknowledging profound loss while simultaneously planning reconstruction. By morning, this vulnerability would be contained again, secured behind the practical facade that had always been his public presentation. But tonight, in the privacy of Christmas night, Russell Harmon mourned the death of the life he had built and the relationships he had trusted. Tomorrow would be soon enough for resurrection. Chapter 7. Aftershocks. January arrived with biting winds and unexpected complications. The initial shock of discovery and confrontation had given way to practical challenges as divorce proceedings began and professional realignments took shape. Russell moved through these developments with outward composure, but each day brought new fractures to the careful architecture of his response. Madeline had returned from her Boston trip with unexpected resolve, throwing herself into college applications with intense focus. She narrowed her choices to 3 prestigious art schools, including her dream program at Rhode Island School of Design. Her communication with Vanessa remained minimal, brief, tense phone calls that left her emotionally drained. She refused all contact with Noah. He sent me another text, she informed Russell one evening, deleting the message without reading it. That's the 3rd this week. Russell looked up from the architectural plans spread across the dining table. Do you want me to address it? Madeline shook her head. No need. His existence isn't relevant to my life anymore. The cold precision in her tone worried Russell. Anger had its purpose in healing, but Madeline seemed to be calcifying into something more permanent. Still, he respected her process, recognizing that her response to betrayal would necessarily differ from his own. The Riverside developer called again. She continued, changing subjects abruptly. Said it's urgent you return his call. Something about permit complications. Russell made a non-committal sound. The Riverside development represented Harmon Construction's largest current project, a mixed-use complex along the waterfront that Noah had helped secure before his departure. Since Christmas, Russell had delegated most operational decisions to Darla Green, maintaining only strategic oversight while focusing on personal reconstruction. Darla's handling Riverside, he explained. They're just trying to circumvent her authority by appealing directly to me. Madeline raised an eyebrow. That doesn't sound like the Russell Harmon approach. You never delegate critical problems. Perspectives change, Russell replied simply. What he didn't share was the growing suspicion that Noah had compromised more than just their family relationship. 3 weeks of forensic accounting had revealed financial irregularities in several projects Noah had managed. Nothing overtly criminal, but questionable allocations and unauthorized discounts that benefited specific contractors. More concerning were the communication records showing extensive contact between Noah and Jason Westridge, owner of their main competitor. The Riverside development stood at the center of these concerns. Noah had negotiated unusually favorable terms for certain subcontractors who, investigations revealed, maintained close relationships with Westridge Construction. The permit complications mentioned by the developer had emerged immediately after Noah's departure, suggesting predetermined triggers rather than coincidental timing. Russell's phone buzzed with Darla's dedicated ringtone. He excused himself to take the call in his office, closing the door for privacy. "We got a problem," Darla stated without preamble. The environmental report for Riverside just came back. Shows contamination levels well above acceptable limits. Russell frowned. That's impossible. We did preliminary testing before breaking ground. The site was clean. Someone falsified the initial reports, Darla continued grimly. The actual soil samples show industrial contaminants consistent with the site's previous manufacturing use. State inspectors are shutting us down pending a full investigation. The implications crystallized immediately in Russell's mind. Noah. Looks that way, Darla confirmed. The original environmental assessment carries his approval signature, but the testing company claims they never conducted those specific tests. The documentation appears legitimate, but doesn't match their internal records. Russell absorbed this information with growing clarity. Noah's betrayal extended beyond the personal sphere into deliberate professional sabotage. The Riverside project represented over $30 million in contracted work, with penalty clauses that could bankrupt Harmon Construction if deadlines weren't met. Have you notified the board? Russell asked, his mind already calculating containment strategies. Emergency meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning, Darla replied. But there's more. Westridge filed permits this morning for a remarkably similar development 3 miles downriver. Their proposal includes specific design elements identical to our Riverside plans that were proprietary and restricted. The The puzzle pieces aligned. Noah hadn't merely conducted an affair with Russell's wife. He'd systematically undermined Russell's company while extracting proprietary information. The falsified environmental report created a crisis that would force Harmon Construction to abandon the Riverside project, clearing the way for Westridge to pursue their alternative development without competition. "I'll be at the office in 30 minutes, Russell decided. "Have the legal team prepare for both criminal and civil actions. And put security on alert. I want access to all systems and facilities restricted immediately." After ending the call, Russell sat motionless, absorbing the expanded dimensions of betrayal. The calculated nature of Noah's actions suggested a resentment far deeper than Russell had recognized, not merely opportunistic weakness, but deliberate, sustained malice. The doorbell interrupted his contemplation. Russell checked the security camera feed on his phone, surprised to see Vanessa standing on the porch, shifting nervously in the January cold. In the 3 weeks since Christmas, she had communicated only through attorneys, maintaining the strict separation Russell had imposed. He considered ignoring her arrival, but curiosity prevailed. Opening the door, he regarded his estranged wife with neutral assessment. "This is unexpected," he noted, making no move to invite her inside. Vanessa looked thinner than he remembered, dark circles shadowing her eyes despite careful makeup. "I need to talk to you," she said, her breath visible in the frigid air. "It's important." Russell hesitated, then stepped back, allowing her to enter the foyer, but no further. "Make it quick. I have a business emergency to address." "Is Madeline home?" Vanessa glanced toward the stairs. "She's in her studio," Russell confirmed. "I can call her down if you'd like, though she may not welcome the interruption." Vanessa shook her head quickly. "No, it's you I need to speak with." She hugged herself against the emotional chill between them. "It's about Noah." Russell's expression hardened. "I have nothing to discuss regarding my brother." "You need to hear this," Vanessa insisted, uncharacteristic urgency in her tone. "He's not who you think. Not who I thought either." "I'm well aware of who Noah is," Russell replied coldly. "A brother who betrayed me, an employee who sabotaged my company, a man who lacks even basic integrity." "It's worse than that." Vanessa's voice dropped to near whisper. "He's been planning this for years, Russell. The affair, the company information, all of it. He talked about destroying you like it was some kind of mission." Despite himself, Russell's interest sharpened. "Explain." Vanessa glanced toward the living room. "Can we sit? This isn't a doorway conversation." Russell led her to the formal living room, a space they had rarely used as a family, now stripped of personal photographs and mementos. They sat on opposite ends of the sofa, the physical distance emblematic of their estrangement. "Noah changed after Christmas," Vanessa began, twisting her hands in her lap. "Once we were exposed, once he lost his position at the company, it was like a mask dropped. All the charm, the attentiveness, it just vanished." "Shocking that betrayal lacks sustainability," Russell observed dryly. Vanessa flinched but continued. 2 nights ago, he was drinking heavily, talking about how you've always had everything. The company, family respect, financial success. He said this was always the plan from a moment you brought him into the business. "What plan specifically?" Russell pressed, focusing on extractable intelligence rather than emotional content. "To take everything from you," Vanessa replied simply. "The company through industrial espionage and sabotage. Me through the affair, which he admitted was initially strategic rather than emotional. Even Madeline, he talked about becoming her stepfather, about redirecting her loyalty and affection." Russell processed this with clinical detachment, noting that it aligned with emerging evidence from the company investigation. "Why are you telling me this now?" Vanessa met his gaze directly for the first time. "Because I'm afraid of him, Russell. Last night, he was talking about what happens when the legal nonsense is finished. How he'll finally settle things with you personally. He had a gun, Russell. I've never seen him with a weapon before." This new information shifted the threat assessment significantly. Russell had anticipated professional and legal challenges from Noah, but physical violence represented escalation beyond expected parameters. "Have you reported this to the police?" he asked. Vanessa shook her head. What would I say? My married lover, who's also my brother-in-law, made vague threats while drunk? They dismiss it as divorce drama. She wasn't wrong. Without specific evidence of imminent threat, law enforcement would consider this a private matter. Where is Noah now? Russell inquired, already formulating additional security measures. Construction site meeting, according to his calendar, with someone from Westridge. Vanessa twisted her wedding ring, which she still wore despite their separation. I moved my things out this morning. I'm staying at the gallery apartment temporarily. Russell studied her, assessing truthfulness versus manipulation. Vanessa had always been emotionally expressive, her feelings transparent on her face. The fear he observed now appeared genuine, as did her regret. Why did you do it? He asked suddenly, the question emerging unbidden from some still wounded part of him. 14 months, Vanessa. Was our marriage really so intolerable? Vanessa's composure fractured, tears spilling despite obvious efforts at control. It wasn't about you being intolerable. It was about feeling invisible. You built this perfect life, this perfect house, this perfect business, and somewhere along the way, I became just another asset to maintain. She wiped at her tears ineffectually. Noah saw me, or pretended to, anyway. He asked about my art, remembered conversations, showed interest in my opinions. I mistook attention for love, the oldest cliché in the world. And now, Russell kept his voice neutral despite the emotional undercurrents pulling at him. Now I understand what I destroyed, Vanessa admitted quietly. Not just our marriage, but the safety and stability of our family. Madeline barely speaks to me. I'm living in a studio apartment above a gallery. And the man I thought would be my fresh start turns out to be using me as a weapon against his brother. Russell absorbed this confession without visible reaction, though internally he noted the irony. Vanessa had sought emotional validation outside their marriage, only to discover she'd been manipulated by someone incapable of genuine emotional connection. I appreciate the warning, he said finally, standing to indicate the conversation's conclusion. I'll take appropriate precautions regarding Noah. As for the rest, that chapter is closed, Vanessa. She rose as well, resignation evident in her posture. I know. I didn't come here seeking reconciliation, just to warn you and maybe... She hesitated, maybe to admit I was wrong. About everything. As Russell escorted her to the door, Madeline appeared at the top of the stairs, her expression hardening at the sight of her mother. Mom, she acknowledged coolly. Unexpected visit. Just leaving, Vanessa replied, her smile tremulous. Your father and I had business to discuss. You look good, Maddie. The RISD application go out. Last week, Madeline confirmed without elaboration. Dad's been helping with the portfolio selection. The deliberate emphasis on Russell's involvement struck Vanessa visibly. She nodded, accepting the implicit rejection without protest. You'll be extraordinary wherever you go, she offered simply, then turned to Russell. Thank you for listening. After Vanessa's departure, Madeline descended the stairs, her expression questioning. Business discussion? Warning, actually, Russell corrected, deciding transparency served better than protection in this instance. Noah may present more problems than anticipated. I need to head to the office to address some related issues. Madeline's expression darkened. What kind of problems? Russell considered how much to share with his daughter, weighing her right to information against unnecessary distress. Professional sabotage, primarily. The Riverside project has significant issues that appear deliberately orchestrated. That snake, Madeline muttered, adolescent vocabulary inadequate to her adult anger. Do you need help? I could come with you, take notes or something. The offer touched Russell unexpectedly. Throughout Madeline's childhood, he maintained clear separation between family and business. Her willingness to cross that boundary now, to support him professionally as well as personally, represented a significant evolution in their relationship. Not tonight, he declined gently, but I appreciate the offer. This may require extended attention in coming days. Will you be all right here alone? Madeline's response was immediate and pragmatic. I'll be fine. But maybe we should update the security system? If Noah's causing trouble at the company, who knows what else he might try? Russell was again struck by his daughter's perceptiveness. Already on my list. New codes, new monitoring service. I'll have it addressed tomorrow. After changing into business attire, Russell prepared to depart, his mind already processing threat assessments and response strategies. Madeline walked him to the door, then surprised him with a quick, fierce hug. "Be careful," she said seriously. Uncle Noah always seemed harmless, but Mom wouldn't have come here unless she was genuinely worried. "I'm always careful," Russell assured her, the standard response suddenly inadequate to the moment's gravity. The drive to his office passed in strategic calculation. Noah's apparent transformation from opportunistic betrayer to deliberate saboteur required comprehensive reevaluation of both personal and professional vulnerability. If Vanessa's report was accurate, and Russell's instinct suggested it was, then the threat extended beyond financial damage to potential physical harm. Russell had always considered himself a builder rather than a destroyer. His response to the affair had been severe but proportional, focused on separation and containment rather than punishment. Noah's escalation suggested a fundamental misunderstanding between them. Russell had been fighting for divorce terms, while Noah had apparently been waging war. At Harmon Construction headquarters, Russell found Darla and the legal team already assembled in the conference room, multiple laptops displaying project documentation and financial analysis. The evidence of Noah's malfeasance had expanded significantly since their phone conversation, revealing a pattern of deliberate undermining that predated the affair with Vanessa. "He's been feeding information to Westridge for at least 18 months, Darla explained, highlighting financial discrepancies on the projection screen. Small things initially, pricing strategies, supplier relationships, then escalating to project specifications and proprietary designs. The Riverside Environmental Report is the most egregious example," added Carlton Myers, head of the legal department. "Falsification of regulatory documents carries potential criminal penalties beyond civil liability." Russell absorbed this information with growing clarity. Noah's betrayal had begun long before the relationship with Vanessa, suggesting the affair itself might have been merely another tactic in a larger strategy of destruction rather than a personal weakness. "Options?" Russell inquired, his focus narrowing to practical response rather than emotional reaction. "Criminal referral to the district attorney," Carlton outlined. "Civil action against Noah, personally for breach of fiduciary duty. Injunction against Westridge for using proprietary information. Corporate espionage claims under state statutes." Russell considered these conventional approaches, weighing their effectiveness against the unconventional threat Noah presented. Legal remedies moved at institutional pace. Noah's apparent volatility suggested more immediate danger. "Implement all recommended actions," Russell decided, "but I want additional measures. Full security audit of all systems Noah accessed. Review of all projects he touched. Complete client outreach to solidify relationships that might be vulnerable." As the team dispersed to execute these directives, Russell retreated to his office for a moment of strategic consideration. The expanding dimensions of betrayal demanded proportional response, yet Russell remained reluctant to abandon his foundational principles, to become a destroyer rather than a builder. His desk phone rang, the private line rarely used by anyone outside his immediate circle. The caller ID displayed unknown, but Russell answered, instinct overriding caution. "You should have called me back." Noah's voice emerged without greeting. "Now things have to get messy, eh?" Russell's response was measured, his tone deliberately neutral. "I'm aware of the Riverside situation, Noah, and your arrangement with Westridge. The appropriate authorities have been notified." Noah's laugh lacked any trace of the boyish charm that had once characterized him. "Always so proper, so procedural. That's why you never saw this coming, Russell. You think the world runs on contracts and regulations, but it actually runs on people, their weaknesses, their desires, their resentments." "Why?" Russell asked simply. "We're brothers. I gave you opportunity, position, support. You gave me scraps from your table," Noah countered, bitterness sharpening each word. You built your empire on Dad's skills, his reputation, his client relationships. Relationships that should have been shared between us. Instead, you took everything when he died, and I got your condescending charity. The accusation struck against Russell's understanding of their shared history. He had been 19 when their father died, Noah only 15. Russell had abandoned his college plans to take over the fledgling construction business, working 16-hour days to keep it solvent, while simultaneously ensuring Noah could complete high school and attend the university their father had dreamed of for his sons. That's not what happened, Russell stated firmly. I protected your future. You controlled my future, Noah corrected. Cast me as the irresponsible younger brother who needed guidance, monitoring, rescue. Do you have any idea what that does to someone over decades? To always be the family charity case. Russell recognized the conversation was yielding valuable insight into Noah's motivations, information that might prove crucial in anticipating his next moves. So the affair with Vanessa, the company's sabotage, this was revenge for perceived injustice. The beginning of revenge, Noah clarified, his tone chilling in its certainty. You've lost your wife, you're losing your company, but we're not finished yet, brother. Not by a long shot. Is that a threat? Russell kept his voice calm despite the implicit menace. It's a promise, Noah replied. From the brother you never really knew. The line went dead, leaving Russell with confirmation of Vanessa's warning and new understanding of the depth of Noah's resentment. This wasn't merely opportunistic betrayal, but calculated, long-term destruction, a campaign Russell had failed to recognize until it was well advanced. Russell immediately contacted his security team, authorizing enhanced protection for both home and office. Additional measures would be necessary: surveillance of Noah's movements, review of potential vulnerabilities, preparation for scenarios beyond conventional business dispute. As Russell implemented these precautions, he found himself facing an unfamiliar moral territory. His response to betrayal had thus far remained within ethical and legal boundaries, focused on self-protection rather than retaliation. Noah's escalation pushed against those constraints, suggesting that conventional defenses might prove inadequate against unconventional attack. The builder in Russell resisted crossing this threshold, clinging to the principles that had guided his life and career. Yet another part, a protective instinct he'd never fully acknowledged, recognized that defending against destruction sometimes required matching force with force. By midnight, Russell had established comprehensive security protocols, documented Noah's threats, and prepared contingency plans for both business and personal domains. Tomorrow would bring implementation of these measures and decisions about how far Russell was willing to go to protect what remained of his carefully constructed life. The trap Noah had set was sprung, but the hunter had revealed himself too soon. Now Russell would respond not as the predictable, procedural brother Noah believed him to be, but as the man betrayal had transformed him into someone capable of calculated response rather than mere reaction. The game had changed, the rules with it. Chapter 8, Counterstrikes. February arrived with record-breaking cold and a convergence of crises that tested Russell's strategic capabilities beyond any previous challenge. The Riverside project remained suspended pending environmental review, placing enormous financial pressure on Harmon Construction. Legal proceedings against Noah had begun, but moved with frustrating judicial lethargy. Most concerning, Noah's threatening behavior had escalated from verbal warnings to practical action. Russell's car had been vandalized in the company parking garage, brake lines cut in a manner that would have caused catastrophic failure at highway speeds had the security team not discovered the tampering during routine inspection. The home security system had detected multiple intrusion attempts at the property perimeter. Most alarmingly, Madeline had reported being followed by an unfamiliar vehicle on her drive home from art class, a black SUV that matched the description of Noah's recent purchase. No direct evidence connected Noah to these incidents, but the pattern was unmistakable. He had progressed from professional sabotage to personal endangerment, apparently determined to inflict maximum damage before legal consequences could materialize. We need to consider a restraining order, Garrett advised during their weekly strategy session at Russell's home. The surveillance footage of him testing your security system should be sufficient grounds. Russell shook his head slightly. A restraining order is a paper shield. It might create legal consequences after an incident, but it doesn't prevent action. Then what's your alternative? Garrett pressed, concern evident in his expression. This isn't just business anymore, Russell. He's escalating toward violence. Russell had indeed developed alternatives, though he hesitated to share them fully even with his oldest friend. The past month had forced a fundamental reassessment of his response to betrayal, a recognition that conventional, reactive measures proved inadequate against Noah's determined campaign. I'm implementing appropriate precautions, Russell assured Garrett, both defensive and preemptive. Before Garrett could press for details, Russell's phone chimed with a specific alert tone, one he'd assigned to the private investigator hired after Noah's threatening call. Russell excused himself to take the call in his office, closing the door for privacy. Mr. Harmon, Victor Reese's gravelly voice reflected his 20 years in military intelligence before entering private investigation. We have confirmation on both fronts. Russell activated the office's sound dampening system, a security measure installed after Christmas. Go ahead. Financial confirmation first, Reese continued. Your brother's been moving significant assets offshore through a shell company structure originating in Panama. Approximately $2.4 million over the past 14 months. This aligned with Russell's suspicions. The time frame corresponded precisely with the beginning of Noah's affair with Vanessa, suggesting financial preparation for eventual exposure and consequence. Source of funds? Russell inquired, already anticipating the answer. Mixed, Reese confirmed. Some personal accounts, but the majority appears to be diverted from Harmon Construction through various channels. Subconsultant payments, materials markup, kickback arrangements with certain vendors. Russell absorbed this without visible reaction, though the scale of embezzlement exceeded his estimates. Noah hadn't merely betrayed Russell's trust. He'd systematically stolen company assets while simultaneously undermining its projects. Any other matter? Russell pressed. Confirmed as well. Reese's tone reflected professional concern. Your brother met with Maurice Dunleavy yesterday at the West Side Motel. Cash payment exchanged, no receipt. Dunleavy has 3 prior assault convictions and known associations with contract enforcement specialists. The euphemism was clear. Noah had hired muscle, potentially for services beyond intimidation. This development transformed the threat assessment from potential to imminent, justifying measures Russell had previously considered extreme. Implementation status? Russell asked, his decision crystallizing. Assets are positioned, Reese confirmed. Awaiting your authorization. Russell paused, aware that this moment represented a significant moral threshold. His response to betrayal had thus far remained within legal parameters, focused on separation and protection rather than retaliation. The plan he developed with Reese pushed beyond those boundaries into actively offensive measures, a fundamental shift from builder to destroyer. Proceed, Russell directed, his voice steady despite the gravity of the authorization. Full implementation, timeline as discussed. Understood, Reese acknowledged. Initial results within 24 hours. I'll report directly. After ending the call, Russell returned to the living room where Garrett waited with barely contained concern. Something's happened, his friend observed immediately. You've got that look, the one from college when someone challenged you to impossible design constraints. Russell considered how much to reveal. Garrett was both friend and attorney, placing him in a complex ethical position regarding certain aspects of Russell's counterplan. Noah has escalated beyond my earlier assessment, Russell acknowledged, deciding limited transparency served their friendship better than complete opacity. He's been embezzling from the company while simultaneously arranging physical threats. Garrett straightened, professional concern overtaking personal. Physical threats? Against you specifically? Against my family, Russell clarified. Evidence suggests he's hired individuals with violent backgrounds, potentially targeting Madeline to maximize emotional impact. Christ, Garrett muttered, running a hand through his thinning hair. That's beyond divorce ugliness or business dispute. That's criminal conspiracy. We need to involve law enforcement immediately. I'm addressing it through alternative channels first, Russell replied carefully. More efficient, more reliable. Garrett studied him with growing alarm. Russell, whatever you're planning, is proportional to the threat, Russell interrupted, and designed to prevent harm rather than merely respond to it. Before Garrett could object further, Madeline entered carrying a tray of coffee. Her appearance had transformed subtly over the past months. Her previously artistic dishevelment replaced by careful precision in dress and manner, mirroring Russell's controlled exterior. The betrayal had accelerated her transition from adolescent to adult, burning away remaining childhood naivety. RISD wants an interview, she announced without preamble. Next Tuesday. Virtual, thankfully, so no travel required. That's excellent news, Russell nodded approvingly. Their acceptance rate is under 20%. An interview request suggests serious interest. Madeline set down the tray, her movements deliberately casual, though Russell detected underlying tension. Have we heard anything from the security company about the car following me? Their report was supposed to come today. This direct reference to ongoing threats in front of Garrett forced Russell to navigate carefully between reassurance and honesty. They've identified the vehicle, he confirmed. Appropriate measures are being implemented. Garrett's expression sharpened at this oblique reference. What measures exactly? Comprehensive ones, Russell replied, his tone discouraging further inquiry. Madeline, perceiving the subtext, changed subjects with deliberate brightness. How's the company restructuring going? Darla mentioned something about new investors when she called yesterday. This innocent question inadvertently touched on another aspect of Russell's counter-strategy. Since Noah's betrayal, Russell had been systematically reorganizing Harmon Construction, transferring operational control to trusted executives, segregating assets into protected entities, establishing contingency mechanisms that could withstand both legal and financial attack. Proceeding as planned, Russell confirmed, accepting the coffee Madeline offered. Darla's leadership has proven exceptionally valuable during this transition. After Garrett departed, still visibly concerned about Russell's unspecified measures, father and daughter settled into what had become their evening routine. Companionable work at the dining table, Russell reviewing business documents while Madeline refined her portfolio for upcoming interviews. You're planning something, Madeline observed without looking up from her sketchbook. Something about Noah. Russell glanced at his daughter, noting the increased perceptiveness that had emerged through their shared crisis. What makes you say that? Your expression when you took that call earlier, Madeline explained, adding careful shading to her drawing. The same look you had when planning the Thompson project demolition, calculating explosive placement for maximum efficiency. The comparison was surprisingly apparent. Russell had indeed been calculating precise points of maximum vulnerability in Noah's carefully constructed new life, identifying where applied pressure would cause complete structural failure. I'm addressing the situation, Russell acknowledged, neither confirming nor denying her assessment. Madeline set down her pencil, meeting his gaze directly. Good. He doesn't deserve your restraint. Not anymore. The cold certainty in her voice, so like his own, triggered a moment of parental concern. Madeline's transformation from artistic dreamer to pragmatic tactician reflected Russell's influence, but he wondered briefly whether this represented healthy adaptation or concerning hardening. Restraint isn't weakness, Russell noted carefully. It's precision, using exactly the force required. No more, no less. Madeline considered this, then nodded. Just make sure it's enough force. He's dangerous, Dad. More than you're admitting. The next morning brought the first results of Russell's countermeasures. While reviewing reports at his home office, he received Reese's call. Phase 1 complete, the investigator reported. Financial disruption implemented at 4 a.m. Panama accounts frozen under suspicion of terrorism financing. Swiss holdings located and flagged for irregularities. Credit lines terminated across all institutions. Russell checked the monitoring system he'd established to track Noah's activities. Reaction: immediate. Reese confirmed with professional satisfaction. Called his banker at 7:15. Attempted funds transfer at 7:32. Rejected. Second attempt at 8:05. Also rejected. Currently on his third financial institution, experiencing identical results. This represented merely the opening move in Russell's carefully orchestrated response. Noah had spent 14 months building financial escape routes. Russell had collapsed them all simultaneously, trapping assets and institutions now alerted to potential criminal activity. The evidence Reese had planted, subtle connections to questionable organizations, irregular transaction patterns matching terrorism financing profiles, would trigger automatic security protocols that even the most expensive attorneys would require months to unravel. Surveillance status? Russell inquired, moving to the next tactical element. Subject is increasingly agitated, Reese reported. 3 calls to Westridge in the past hour. Meeting scheduled for noon at the waterfront property. Russell checked his watch. Implement Phase 2 at 11:30. I want maximum intersection with the Westridge meeting. Understood, Reese acknowledged. Authorities are prepared. Documentation is comprehensive. After ending the call, Russell turned to find Madeline in the doorway, her expression questioning though she'd clearly heard only his side of the conversation. It's happening today, isn't it? She asked quietly. Russell nodded, seeing no benefit in denial. Certain elements are in motion, yes. Do you need me out of the way? Her directness reflected their evolving relationship, from protected child to practical ally. It would be preferable, Russell acknowledged. Perhaps visit the gallery to select graduation exhibition frames? Madeline understood immediately. Keeping me visible in public places with witnesses. Smart. She hesitated. What about Mom? Is she involved in what's happening? The question touched on Russell's most complex decision in planning his counteroffensive. Vanessa's role in the betrayal remained significant, yet her warning about Noah's escalating behavior had proven valuable. Russell had weighted these factors carefully, designing a response that differentiated between his wife's emotional betrayal and his brother's calculated destruction. Your mother is not a target, he assured Madeline, though there may be peripheral impact. This seemed to satisfy Madeline, who nodded before departing to shower and prepare for her public appearance. Russell returned to monitoring communications, tracking the cascade of disruptions now unfolding according to his design. By 11 a.m., Noah's financial panic had escalated to professional crisis. The documentation Russell had provided anonymously to the state licensing board had triggered an emergency review of Noah's professional engineering credentials, with immediate suspension pending investigation. Simultaneously, the falsified environmental reports for Riverside had been linked directly to Noah through digital forensics, prompting regulatory authorities to expand their investigation beyond the immediate project. The elegance of Russell's approach lay in its fundamental legality. He had merely accelerated existing processes, provided evidence to appropriate authorities, and connected dots that would eventually have aligned anyway. Unlike Noah's sabotage, Russell's countermeasures simply revealed truth rather than creating fiction. At precisely 11:30, Russell received confirmation that Phase 2 had initiated. Police officers were serving search warrants at Noah's apartment and the Westridge headquarters simultaneously, based on evidence of corporate espionage and environmental fraud. The timing, during Noah's scheduled meeting with Jason Westridge, ensured maximum publicity within the industry community. Russell watched the security feed from his company headquarters, where Darla Green was delivering a carefully crafted statement to assembled employees. Harmon Construction had uncovered evidence of serious misconduct by a former executive, had fully cooperated with authorities, and remained financially stable despite the individual's attempts at sabotage. The messaging positioned the company as victim rather than compromised entity, a crucial distinction for client confidence. By afternoon, the controlled demolition of Noah's new life was proceeding. His financial resources were frozen, his professional credentials suspended, his freedom potentially at risk from multiple criminal investigations. Most importantly, his relationship with Westridge had imploded, with Jason Westridge publicly denouncing unethical behavior, and claiming to be another victim of manipulation. Yet Russell recognized these institutional consequences, while significant, wouldn't address the personal threat Noah posed. The hired enforcer, Maurice Dunleavy, remained unaccounted for, and Noah's increasingly desperate situation might accelerate rather than diminish his determination to inflict harm. Russell's phone chimed with a text from Vanessa. "Is this your doing?" And just call me screaming about police raids and frozen accounts. After brief consideration, Russell replied with calculated honesty. Consequences of his actions. Stay clear of him. He's unstable and potentially dangerous. Vanessa's response came quickly. Too late. He's here now, demanding money, keys to my car, threatening to make Russell pay by hurting me. This development required immediate adjustment to Russell's timeline. He contacted Reese immediately. Noah's at the gallery with Vanessa, Russell reported. Potential hostage situation developing. Nearest asset is 7 minutes out. Reese replied, professional comm masking evident concern. Police notification recommended. Russell considered options. The gallery occupied the ground floor of a historic building in downtown Greenwich, with Vanessa's temporary apartment on the second level. Limited exits, multiple large windows, moderate pedestrian traffic during business hours. No police yet, Russell decided. Have your asset establish perimeter observation only. I'm 5 minutes away. Not advisable for you to approach, Reese cautioned. Subject is increasingly unstable and explicitly threatens you. Precisely why I'm the appropriate extraction tool, Russell countered, already moving toward his car. Continue monitoring all communications. Prepare for rapid escalation if necessary. The drive to the gallery passed in focus calculation. Russell had anticipated potential confrontation with Noah, though not with Vanessa, as intermediary factor. This changed tactical parameters, but not strategic objective. Neutralized the threat Noah presented permanently, but legally. Russell parked a block from the gallery, approaching on foot through the service alley that connected to the building's rear entrance. The door required keycard access, but Russell had retained Vanessa's spare from their marriage, one of many contingency measures he'd preserved throughout the separation process. Inside, he moved silently through the storage area, years of construction site work having taught him how to distribute weight to avoid creaking floorboards. Voices carried from the gallery's main showroom. Noah's increasingly agitated, Vanessa's attempting calm de-escalation. You don't understand what he's done. Noah's voice cracked with stress. Everything's gone. Accounts frozen, credentials suspended, police crawling through my apartment. He's destroying me, Van. Violence won't solve anything, Vanessa replied, her tone revealing professional experience with agitated clients. Put the gun down, Noah. Let's think this through rationally. The confirmation of armed threat shifted Russell's approach immediately. Direct confrontation now carried unacceptable risk. Instead, he positioned himself behind the partial wall, separating storage from showroom, assessing the situation through the narrow gap between wall panels. Noah paced erratically before the gallery's main windows, a handgun gesturing carelessly as he moved. Vanessa stood behind the reception desk, maintaining the physical barrier between them. Most concerning was Noah's physical deterioration, unshaven, disheveled, with the unfocused movements of someone who hadn't slept in days. Russell withdrew his phone, texting Reese, subject armed, unstable. Gallery main room, V maintaining distance. Recommend police notification with emphasis on mental health response. I'm positioned in storage area. Reese's acknowledgement came immediately, along with confirmation that their asset had established visual on all exits. Russell returned his attention to the confrontation, evaluating intervention timing based on threat escalation. He was always going to win, Noah ranted, gesturing toward the windows. Perfect Russell with his perfect company and perfect family. Did you know her father left him controlling interest? I was 15, too young for legal responsibility, so Golden Boy got everything: property, client relationships, equipment. This revelation of decades-old resentment confirmed Russell's emerging understanding of his brother's motivations. Noah's betrayal hadn't begun with the affair. It had roots in their father's death and the unequal distribution of responsibility and authority that followed. Russell tried to include you, Vanessa countered, her voice steady despite evident fear. He brought you into the company, supported your professional development. He kept me dependent, Noah shouted, slamming his free hand against the display pedestal. Always the junior partner, always requiring his approval, his signature, his permission. Do you have any idea what that does to someone? Year after year of being the lesser brother. The accusation carried genuine pain beneath its rage, a distorted perception that nonetheless reflected Noah's lived experience. Russell absorbed this insight without emotional reaction, maintaining tactical focus on the immediate threat. Whatever issues you have with Russell, they're between you and him, Vanessa attempted reason again. Using me as leverage only compounds the problem. Noah's laugh held no humor. There is no more problem to compound, Van. It's over. My career, my finances, my future, all gone in a single morning. The only question remaining is how much I take from him before I go down. The statement confirmed Russell's risk assessment. Noah had reached the destruction phase of his emotional collapse, focused on inflicting maximum damage without regard for consequences. This represented peak danger, requiring immediate intervention. Russell calmly calculated angles, timing, and relative positions. Noah stood at the gallery's center, attention focused on Vanessa and the street-facing windows. Russell had the advantages of surprise, superior physical condition, and strategic clarity, but Noah held the critical element of firearms capability. A notification tone from Noah's pocket provided the necessary opportunity. As Noah fumbled to check his phone one-handed, Russell moved, crossing the storage threshold into the main gallery and covering the 15 feet to Noah before his brother could fully register the new presence. Russell's first strike targeted Noah's weapon hand, a precise blow to the wrist that disrupted grip and neural function simultaneously. The gun clattered to the hardwood floor as Russell's second movement swept Noah's legs, taking him to the ground with controlled force. Noah fought back with desperate strength, landing a glancing blow to Russell's jaw before Russell established positional control. Unlike Noah, who'd spent his life behind desks and in client meetings, Russell had worked construction sites for decades, developing functional strength that theoretical knowledge couldn't match. It's over, Noah, Russell stated calmly, pinning his brother with practiced efficiency. Police are en route. The gun gives them everything needed for immediate arrest, regardless of financial investigations. You've taken everything, Noah gasped, struggling ineffectively against Russell's hold. Again, you destroyed everything, Russell corrected, increasing pressure slightly as Noah continued to resist. I'm merely ensuring appropriate consequences. Vanessa had retrieved the weapon, placing it carefully on a high shelf before calling emergency services. Russell maintained control of Noah until police arrived minutes later, professionally documenting the situation and taking Noah into custody on multiple charges: illegal weapons possession, assault, criminal threatening. As they led Noah away, he turned back to Russell with naked hatred. This isn't finished, he spat. Not while I still breathe. Russell met his brother's gaze with calm certainty. Actually, it is finished. Completely and irreversibly. Only after police departed with Noah did Russell allow himself to assess Vanessa, who sat trembling at the reception desk, shock finally overtaking her professional composure. Are you injured? He asked, maintaining practical focus. She shook her head. No, frightened but unharmed. She looked up at Russell, genuine gratitude mixing with lingering guilt. You came yourself. Why not send security? Or just call police immediately? Tactical assessment, Russell replied simply. The situation required precise intervention with minimal collateral damage. Vanessa studied him with newfound perception. You're not who I thought you were, she observed quietly. All these years, I saw the builder, the planner, the methodical businessman. I never recognized the strategist beneath. People generally don't, Russell acknowledged, the observation neither prideful nor resentful, merely factual. Before further conversation could develop, Russell's phone alerted him to Reese's call. He stepped aside to take it, maintaining situational awareness of the gallery space. Final confirmation, Reese reported. All electronic evidence has been delivered to authorities. Financial freeze is now accompanied by criminal investigation flags. Professional licenses suspended pending review. The Westridge connection has been fully documented and submitted to appropriate agencies. In the other matter, Russell inquired. Completed as directed, Reese confirmed. All surveillance materials from the affair have been anonymously delivered to Noah's defense attorney, demonstrating pattern of instability and obsession dating back 18 months. Combined with today's armed confrontation, this creates substantial framework for psychiatric evaluation rather than standard criminal processing. This represented the final element of Russell's counteroffensive, not merely legal consequences for Noah's actions, but redirection into long-term psychiatric confinement rather than limited incarceration. The evidence Russell had accumulated demonstrated not just criminal behavior, but dangerous obsession and psychological deterioration, ensuring extended removal from society rather than brief punishment. Excellent, Russell acknowledged. Maintain monitoring through initial hearing. After ending the call, Russell returned his attention to Vanessa, who watched him with complex emotion. You planned all of this, she realized aloud. Not just responding to Noah's actions, but orchestrating his complete destruction. I planned for contingencies, Russell corrected. Noah's choices determined which became necessary. Vanessa shook her head slightly, a mix of fear and admiration coloring her expression. Remind me never to betray you again, she attempted weakly. No reminder necessary, Russell replied without emotion. We have no remaining relationship to betray. The statement wasn't cruel, merely factual, a clear delineation of boundaries that would define their interaction moving forward. Co-parents to Madeline, former spouses with civilized communication, but nothing more intimate or vulnerable. As Russell prepared to depart, Vanessa spoke again. Russell, thank you for coming when I needed help, despite everything. He paused, considering her words. You're Madeline's mother, he said finally. That connection remains relevant regardless of our marital status. With that limited acknowledgement of continued obligation, Russell left the gallery to complete the day's remaining tasks, checking on Madeline, updating Garrett regarding developments, reviewing company communications about the situation. By evening, Noah's implosion had become breaking news in industry publications and local media. His arrest followed financial irregularities, professional misconduct allegations, and corporate espionage investigations, a comprehensive destruction executed through entirely legal mechanisms. Russell had dismantled his brother's life, not through matching Noah's criminal behavior, but by simply accelerating the natural consequences of those actions. When Russell returned home, he found Madeline waiting in his office, news articles about Noah's arrest displayed on her tablet. It worked, she observed, her expression reflecting mature understanding beyond her years. All of it. Russell nodded, removing his jacket. Natural consequences appropriately timed. Madeline studied him with the same analytical perception he'd often turn on architectural plans. You could have destroyed Mom the same way, she noted. But you didn't. Different situations required different responses, Russell explained, pouring a modest measure of scotch. Your mother's actions, while deeply inappropriate, weren't maliciously motivated or sustained over years. Proportional response matters. Justice, not vengeance, Madeline translated, revealing her absorption of Russell's principles despite her youth. Exactly. Russell sat behind his desk, allowing subtle fatigue to show now that the day's critical actions had concluded. Noah presented genuine danger to this family and the company. Removing that threat permanently required comprehensive approach. Madeline nodded, accepting this assessment without further question. Their relationship had transformed through crisis into something approaching partnership. Not equal in experience or authority, but sharing fundamental values and understanding. RSD called while you were out, she offered, changing subjects with deliberate normalcy. The interview went well. They're offering early admission with partial scholarship. This positive development, Madeline's artistic future, securing foundation despite family upheaval, provided appropriate counterbalance to the day's destructive necessities. Russell allowed himself a genuine smile, pride temporarily overriding tactical focus. Congratulations, he offered simply. Well-deserved recognition. As they discussed exhibition requirements and housing arrangements for the fall semester, Russell monitored continued updates on Noah's situation. The initial hearing had concluded with denial of bail based on flight risk and public safety concerns, with psychiatric evaluation ordered before further proceedings. Examination of devices seized during the apartment search had revealed extensive documentation of Noah's obsession with destroying Russell. Journal entries dating back years, surveillance photographs, detailed revenge scenarios. The evidence Russell had carefully curated and anonymously provided created a comprehensive narrative. Noah's deteriorating mental health had manifested in criminal behavior, culminating in armed confrontation. This framework ensured long-term confinement and treatment rather than brief incarceration, permanent neutralization of the threat, while maintaining technical legality throughout the process. By bedtime, Russell's counteroffensive had achieved all primary objectives. Noah removed from society through legal mechanisms, company stability preserved through transparent communication and leadership transition, family security re-established through practical protections. The personal and professional structures Noah had attempted to destroy now stood reinforced, adapted to withstand not just this attack, but potential future threats as well. As Russell completed his evening routine, security checks, communication reviews, preparation for tomorrow, he acknowledged the transformation these months had required. The betrayal had forced evolution from builder to defender, from creator to strategic warrior. This adaptation, while necessary, carried costs in trust and connection that might never fully heal. Yet Russell recognized that foundations, once properly reconstructed after damage, often exceeded their original strength. The rebuilt life, emerging from betrayal's wreckage, wouldn't replicate what existed before, but perhaps it didn't need to. Perhaps this new construction, designed with hard-earned wisdom about structural vulnerabilities, might ultimately prove more resilient than its predecessor. With this architectural insight providing philosophical comfort, Russell Harmon completed his day of justice delivered, preparing for the reconstruction that would follow destruction's necessary conclusion. Chapter 9. Foundations Rebuilt. 3 months after Noah's arrest, summer settled over Greenwich with characteristic humidity and renewed energy. The Harmon residence had undergone subtle transformation. Interior walls repainted in warmer tones, furniture rearranged to optimize natural light, garden beds replanted with Madeline selections rather than Vanessa's preferred formal arrangements. Physical space reflecting psychological evolution, the home's atmosphere softening from showcase to sanctuary. Russell stood in his newly remodeled office, reviewing architectural plans for Harmon Construction's latest project, a community art center that would replace the abandoned Riverside development. After Noah's environmental fraud had been fully documented, Russell had pivoted the company away from commercial development towards civic infrastructure, rebuilding not just organizational stability, but public reputation as well. The community foundation called again. Darla Green announced from the doorway, tablet in hand. They want to confirm your attendance at the groundbreaking ceremony next month. Russell nodded, marking a dimension adjustment on the blueprints. Schedule it. Full press coverage, charitable component, as discussed. Darla made the notation, then hesitated with uncharacteristic uncertainty. There's something else. The psychiatric hospital called. Noah's requesting visitation. The statement landed with minimal impact, Russell having anticipated this development eventually. 3 months of intensive treatment had apparently progressed Noah to the stage where controlled external contact became therapeutically appropriate. Denied, Russell replied without hesitation. Forward all such requests to legal for standard response. He's apparently shown significant improvement, Darla continued, fulfilling her professional obligation to provide complete information. The treatment team suggests family reconciliation might prove beneficial to his recovery. Russell looked up from the blueprints, his expression reflecting neither anger nor distress, merely pragmatic assessment. His recovery is their professional responsibility. Our security remains mine. The separation stays absolute. This decision reflected neither vengeance nor emotional reaction, but calculated risk management. Noah's betrayal had revealed fundamental character deficiencies no treatment could fully mitigate. Russell had no intention of re-establishing connection that might eventually threaten the stability he'd reconstructed. Understood, Darla acknowledged, recognizing the matter closed. On a more positive note, the quarterly financials exceeded projections by 17%. The restructuring has delivered better than anticipated efficiency. This news confirmed Russell's strategic wisdom in using crisis as catalyst for comprehensive organizational change. Following Noah's removal, Russell had implemented the transition plan developed during December's initial response, elevating Darla to operational leadership while he focused on strategic direction and design innovation. The hybrid role suited his evolving priorities, allowing creative fulfillment while maintaining control of critical decisions. Excellent, Russell nodded. Implement the employee bonus structure we discussed. Performance at this level deserves appropriate recognition. After Darla departed, Russell returned to the architectural plans with renewed focus. The Arts Center represented personal evolution as much as professional pivot, incorporating Madeline's input regarding studio layouts and gallery spaces, blending Russell's structural with artistic functionality in ways their previous communication barrier might have prevented. His phone chimed with a text from Madeline. Mom asking if I can have dinner with her tonight before I leave. Thoughts? This simple consultation reflected their transformed relationship. Following Noah's arrest and subsequent psychiatric commitment, Madeline had maintained limited contact with Vanessa. Occasional meals, brief conversations, tentative rebuilding of damaged trust. Russell had neither encouraged nor discouraged this reconciliation, recognizing Madeline's right to navigate her own relationship with her mother. Your decision entirely, Russell replied. Dinner here at 8 if your plans change. The divorce had finalized 2 months prior, concluding with surprising efficiency given the complex emotions involved. Vanessa had honored her commitment to accept prenuptial terms, receiving the settlement specified 12 years earlier plus Russell's unexpected addition of gallery ownership transfer, a decision based on practical recognition of her professional capabilities rather than emotional generosity. Their post-marriage interaction remained minimal but civilized, coordinated primarily around Madeline's college preparation. Tomorrow would mark a significant milestone in this cooperative separation, with both parents accompanying Madeline to RIS summer program orientation before she began full-time enrollment in September. Russell's phone rang with Garrett's distinctive tone, prompting momentary concern given his friend's awareness of Russell's work schedule. The final documentation arrived, Garrett announced without preamble. Westridge settlement fully executed. Funds transferred to the designated accounts. Case officially closed. This represented the conclusion of Harmon Construction's civil action against Westridge Development for corporate espionage and intellectual property theft. After Noah's criminal charges had been filed, Jason Westridge had rapidly sought settlement, desperate to distance his company from potential criminal conspiracy implications. Transfer the settlement funds to the Scholarship Foundation as discussed, Russell directed. Anonymous donor designation. Already initiated, Garrett confirmed. The board was quite surprised by the sudden 7-figure endowment. Russell had established the Construction Industry Scholarship Fund during spring reorganization, creating educational opportunities for students from disadvantaged backgrounds interested in architectural design and construction management. The Westridge settlement funds would ensure program sustainability for decades, transforming financial compensation into lasting positive impact. One other thing, Garrett continued, his tone shifting to personal rather than professional. The prosecutor called. Noah, psychiatrist, is recommending transfer to a less restrictive facility based on treatment progress. The DA wanted your position before responding. Russell had anticipated this development as well, having researched typical treatment trajectories during his initial planning. Opposition remains unchanged. The psychiatric evaluation documented sustained, deliberate destructive intent spanning years. 3 months of medication compliance doesn't negate that reality. Understood, Garrett replied. I'll communicate your continued security concerns. The restraining order provides additional legal framework for maintaining separation. After ending the call, Russell completed his review of the Arts Center plans, approved the final adjustments, and prepared to leave the office. His work-life balance had shifted significantly since Christmas, deliberate adjustment rather than crisis-driven change, reclaiming personal time previously sacrificed to professional demands. Russell drove home through early evening traffic, mentally reviewing tomorrow's RISD orientation schedule. Madeline's acceptance had represented one positive outcome amid months of challenge. Her artistic talent recognized with substantial scholarship and advanced placement. The summer program would allow early acclimation to collegiate environment while completing final portfolio development. At home, Russell found Madeline on the back patio, sketching the garden with focused concentration. Her artistic style had evolved significantly during recent months, incorporating into her previously fluid approach, structure balancing expression in visual parallel to her personal development. Going to Mom's for dinner, she announced without looking up from her drawing. She wants to give me something before tomorrow's trip. Russell nodded, respecting her decision without commentary. Need a ride? No thanks, Madeline replied, adding detailed shading to a garden bench. She's picking me up at 7. I'll be back by 9 to finish packing. Their communication had developed this comfortable efficiency. Information exchanged without unnecessary elaboration, respect for independence balanced with practical coordination. Madeline's maturity had accelerated through family crisis, transforming their relationship from traditional parent-child dynamic toward emerging adult partnership. The Art Center plans are finalized, Russell mentioned, knowing her interest in the project extended beyond filial support. Your studio layout suggestions proved valuable for optimizing natural light. Madeline looked up with genuine interest. Did they keep the convertible exhibition space? With modifications to improve acoustic separation, Russell confirmed. Construction begins next month. They discussed design details for several minutes, shared architectural vocabulary bridging their different perspectives. This common ground had developed gradually during rebuilding months. Russell recognizing artistic considerations beyond functional requirements. Madeline appreciating structural necessities underlying creative expression. After Madeline departed for dinner with Vanessa, Russell completed practical preparation for tomorrow's overnight trip. His phone chimed with a text from Reese, maintaining scheduled security updates despite diminished threat level. Subject remains in secured facility. All monitoring systems operational. No unauthorized communication attempts this week. Russell acknowledged the update with professional appreciation. Though Noah's physical threat had been neutralized through institutional confinement, Russell maintained comprehensive security protocols, surveillance of Noah's limited communications, monitoring of potential proxies, regular assessment of physical protection systems. The precautions reflected neither paranoia nor vendetta, merely pragmatic risk management. While reviewing email, Russell received an unexpected message from Vanessa, its formal tone reflecting their revised relationship. Russell, a letter arrived for you at the gallery today, forwarded from the house before address changes processed. Given tomorrow's joint travel, I've left it with tonight's gift for Madeline. She'll bring it home. It appears to be from Noah's facility, though obviously screened through proper channels. Your decision whether to read it, of course. Vanessa. The notification prompted neither emotional reaction nor immediate decision. Russell simply acknowledged the information, recognizing another choice point approaching regarding boundaries with his institutionalized brother. When Madeline returned from dinner, she carried both the anticipated package from Vanessa and the forwarded letter. She placed both on the kitchen island without comment, though her glance at the institutional return address revealed awareness of its significance. Mom's giving me her old professional camera equipment, she explained, focusing on the positives. Says I've developed enough technical skill to justify the investment. Thoughtful and practical, Russell acknowledged, recognizing Vanessa's gesture as both maternal support and partial atonement. Will it complement your program requirements? Madeline nodded, her expression reflecting complex emotions regarding her mother, lingering hurt balanced against tentative reconnection. The photography elective requires digital SLR capability. This saves considerable expense. She hesitated, then added quietly, "She's trying, Dad." In her way, Russell accepted this assessment without contradiction or endorsement. Vanessa's efforts toward reconciliation with Madeline represented personal growth Russell neither opposed nor facilitated, a separate relationship development that paralleled rather than intersected his own post-marriage evolution. Later that evening, after Madeline completed packing and retired to her room, Russell finally addressed the forwarded letter. The institutional envelope had been professionally opened and resealed, contents examined by facility staff before approval for external delivery. Russell considered discarding it unread, maintaining absolute separation from Noah's attempted communication. Professional curiosity prevailed over emotional preference. Information, even potentially manipulative, provided tactical advantage through insight into potential threat evolution. Russell opened the letter with clinical detachment, prepared for manipulation disguised as reconciliation. The single page contained Noah's distinctive handwriting, though noticeably steadier than his previous frenetic style. "Russell, psychiatrists tell me this letter may never reach you. They're probably right. If it does, you'll likely destroy it unread. Also, you're right. I won't ask forgiveness. We're beyond that possibility, and medicinal clarity doesn't erase responsibility. What I did was calculated, sustained, and deliberately destructive. No apology addresses harm of that magnitude. Treatment has provided unwanted insight. My perception of our relationship bore little resemblance to reality. The narrative I constructed of deliberate suppression and control reflected internal damage rather than external truth. This doesn't excuse actions, merely explains distorted motivation. You won't believe this, but I never intended physical harm to Madeline. The surveillance was meant to frighten you, not threaten her. That distinction matters little now, but needed stating. I'll remain here indefinitely. The diagnosis explains, but doesn't absolve. The delusion has shattered, leaving only wreckage where brotherhood once existed. You constructed while I destroyed. The fundamental difference between us was always there, though I refused to see it until forced chemical clarity revealed truth too late for relevance. Noah. Russell read the letter twice, assessing content against potential manipulation. The absence of forgiveness requests or reconciliation overtures suggested genuine psychiatric intervention rather than strategic communication. Noah's acknowledgement of deliberate destruction and recognition of permanent separation indicated potentially authentic treatment progress rather than tactical positioning. After careful consideration, Russell placed the letter in his office safe rather than discarding it, neither accepting reconnection nor rejecting potential future evidentiary value. Noah's communication changed nothing regarding security protocols or legal boundaries, yet provided confirmation that institutional separation remained appropriate indefinitely. The following morning brought focused activity as Russell and Madeline prepared for the RISD orientation trip. Their efficient coordination reflected months of adapted routine, practical partnership, replacing the family choreography that had previously defined household operation. Vanessa met them at the train station, her nervous smile acknowledging the awkwardness of their first extended joint interaction since Christmas. Morning, she greeted them, professional composure masking evident discomfort. Beautiful day for orientation. Perfect timing with the summer program starting Monday, Russell agreed, maintaining civilized communication without undue warmth. Madeline's portfolio received special mention from the department chair. This neutral topic, their daughter's achievement, provided safe conversational territory during the train journey to Providence. Vanessa contributed gallery connections that might prove valuable for Madeline's professional development. Russell outlined practical considerations regarding campus security and financial management. Their shared concern for Madeline's well-being created temporary bridge across permanent relationship rupture. The RISD campus welcomed them with institutional enthusiasm, orientation leaders guiding incoming students and parents through administrative requirements and program introductions. Russell noted the physical architecture with professional appreciation. Historic buildings adapted for contemporary function, strategic renovations preserving character while improving utility. During the parent information session, Russell and Vanessa maintained appropriate physical distance while projecting unified support for Madeline's educational journey. Their civilized interaction drew occasional curious glances from other parents, perhaps detecting the careful boundaries of their post-marriage communication. "She's going to thrive here," Vanessa observed during a campus tour break, watching Madeline engage enthusiastically with fellow art students. "This environment suits her perfectly." Russell nodded agreement. The program structure balances creative exploration with practical skill development. Professionally valuable combination. This limited but genuine consensus represented their evolving co-parent relationship. Mutual recognition of Madeline's needs transcending personal animosity, practical cooperation replacing emotional connection. Not friendship, certainly, but functional interaction that prioritized their daughter's well-being above lingering resentment. After orientation concluded, they accompanied Madeline to her summer housing assignment, a converted Victorian sharing architectural elements with the main campus while providing transitional independence. Russell assessed security features with habitual thoroughness, while Vanessa advised on space personalization, their different priorities complementing rather than conflicting. "I'll be fine," Madeline assured them, recognizing their protective instincts beneath practical guidance. The security system is comprehensive, roommates seem reasonable, and campus police maintain regular patrols. Her awareness of safety considerations reflected lingering effects from their family crisis. Innocence replaced by pragmatic risk assessment, artistic optimism balanced against practical caution. Russell noted this adaptation with mixed emotions, recognizing necessary maturation while regretting its acceleration through traumatic experience. When departure time arrived, Russell and Vanessa stood together before their daughter, awkward ceremonial unity marking this significant transition. Madeline hugged each parent individually, Vanessa with emotional intensity, Russell with restrained affection reflecting their different expressive styles. "Call whenever needed," Russell reminded her, practical support his natural language. Financial transfers are automated monthly. Emergency fund accessible through the dedicated card. "And call just to talk too," Vanessa added, emotional connection her complimentary contribution. "About art, classes, new friends, anything that matters." Madeline nodded, accepting both perspectives with evident appreciation for their different strengths. "I will. Both kind of calls." Her smile reflected growing comfort with their reconstructed family dynamic. Neither traditional nor broken, but functionally adapted to new reality. The return journey proceeded with less tension than arrival. Shared concern for Madeline's successful transition, creating temporary cooperative framework. When they reached Greenwich Station, Russell and Vanessa prepared to separate toward their respective homes. "She's going to be exceptional," Vanessa observed, professional assessment rather than merely maternal pride. "Her technical skill already exceeds many working artists I represent." With corresponding work ethic and practical judgment, Russell agreed, acknowledging Madeline's balanced development. Success requires both creative vision and structural implementation. This philosophical alignment, recognition that achievement demands both artistic inspiration and practical foundation, represented their most fundamental compatibility, the core value that had initially attracted them despite different expressions. That compatibility had proven insufficient for sustaining marriage, yet remained relevant for effective co-parenting. The gallery's hosting a Rising Artists exhibition next month, Vanessa mentioned as they prepared to depart. Several RISD graduates among the featured creators. "You'd be welcome to attend the opening, if interested in seeing potential career paths for Madeline." The invitation carried no romantic subtext, merely professional courtesy and shared parental interest. Russell considered briefly before nodding. Send the details. Calendar permitting, I'll attend briefly. With this limited but civil future connection established, they separated toward reconstructed individual lives. Vanessa to her gallery apartment, Russell to the family home, now reconfigured as personal space rather than marital domain. Returning to the quiet house, Russell completed his evening routine: security confirmation, communication review, preparation for tomorrow's activities. The calendar notification from Madeline's first day of summer classes prompted subtle satisfaction. His daughter's future progressing despite family reconfiguration, educational foundation providing stability amid personal transformation. Later that evening, Russell received a text from Madeline. Orientation dinner actually decent. Roommates include 2 other early admission students. Studio assignment tomorrow. Everything secure. The message's dual content, both social update and security confirmation, reflected their evolved communication, blending Vanessa's expressive influence with Russell's practical focus. Russell replied with similar balance. Glad to hear it. Looking forward to studio details. Sleep well. As midnight approached, Russell stood at his office window, surveying the property that had once represented perfect family completion. The garden shed, scene of initial betrayal discovery, had been repurposed as Madeline's photography darkroom during spring reconstruction. The master bedroom had been remodeled with masculine simplicity, erasing lingering traces of shared occupation. The household systems operated with adapted efficiency, accommodating single resident rather than family unit. Russell's phone chimed with final security confirmation from Reese. All monitoring systems operational. Subject remains in secured facility. No anomalous activities detected. Daily report complete. The notification represented not lingering vengeance, but pragmatic risk management, prudent precaution rather than emotional fixation. Noah's psychiatric confinement provided necessary separation, while monitoring ensured early detection of potential boundary challenges. The systems would remain indefinitely, neither excessive nor insufficient for addressing demonstrated threat. Russell acknowledged the update, then completed final preparation for sleep. Tomorrow would bring continued reconstruction. Company leadership meeting regarding the Arts Center project, architectural review of our ISD campus features for potential incorporation, consideration of Vanessa's gallery exhibition invitation as potential normalization step. As he settled into adapted routine, Russell acknowledged the fundamental truth that had emerged through crisis navigation. Foundations, when properly rebuilt after betrayal's damage, often exceeded original construction in both strength and functionality. The reconstructed life, rising from destruction's aftermath, wasn't merely a repaired version of previous existence, but evolved creation incorporating hard-earned wisdom about structural vulnerabilities and essential reinforcement. The perfect family structure had collapsed under betrayal's weight, revealing critical design flaws beneath surface appearance. Its replacement, reconfigured parenthood, adapted professional focus, reconstructed personal identity, incorporated architectural lessons impossible to learn without catastrophic failure. Balance without dependency, strength without rigidity, connection without vulnerability to single-point collapse. Russell Harmon had entered this ordeal as successful builder of external structures, homes, businesses, community developments. He emerged as architect of more complex construction, adaptable systems designed to withstand betrayal without disintegration, relationships built on transparency rather than assumption, personal identity founded on intrinsic rather than relational value. The betrayal that had threatened total destruction had instead forced comprehensive redesign, creating foundation for future construction that no deception could undermine. The transformation from builder to architect of resilience, Russell's evolutionary response to catastrophic challenge, represented not merely survival, but fundamental advancement. As Russell completed his day, the reconstructed home settled around him with quiet stability, not to showcase perfection of previous existence, but something ultimately more valuable: authentic structural integrity that would withstand